Mission Impossible, the greatest movie series in humanity's history. Finally, we are covering it. Who am I? I don't know. Who are they? You'll discover. My name is Mike.
I'm John.
And I'm Matthew.
And this is... What's the name of the pod?
The entity is the party. A Mission Impossible podcast.
The greatest movie series and the most inspirational art of my life is now about to be covered in a full-length feature pod. We will cover every single movie in the series, and we'll have special episodes to highlight some other fun little bits. But welcome to our first pod. This will be highlighting the 1996... Six?
That was 98.
Six.
1996. Bonus points if you could get the month and the day.
It was Memorial Day weekend, right?
So, what month?
Memorial Day. Memorial Day is in the
Always-
summer.
Always remember.
It's May.
Okay.
May.
Okay, now give me a date, like a day.
Like I'm gonna. What day of the week or?
Just like the day, like the exact, as close as you could get.
I'm gonna say like the
numeric value.
17th.
You say 17th?
Yes.
It's like in the 20s, right?
So what?
24th?
The May 22nd, 1996. I was only just about a month years old when this movie came out. Cool to think about.
So this is obviously the beginning of the pod, and it starts with the original Mission Impossible movie. This was directed, John, by
Our main man, Mr. Brian De Palma, director of one of the greatest movies of all time besides this movie. You know what it is?
I'm eagerly anticipating which one you're going to pick.
The Kevin Costner starring The Untouchables.
Of course.
One of the greatest movies of all time.
Well, anyway, this is not a Kevin Costner pod. This is a Tom Cruise
But why?
Productions
But
pod.
why can't it be a Costner pod?
I mean, maybe another day. So, Mission Impossible.
Turns out it was possible.
The Impossible Mission Force, they find ways to do things, but a little bit of irony, the first group struggled. So, we open, John, in Kyiv, I believe, correct?
We
And-
open in Kyiv.
Yes, and they got this guy, and they're like, hey, they want to get this name out of this dude. So they got Claire all drugged up. Her heart beats probably like little to nothing. And our buddy Jack, Emilio Estevez, is getting a little bit impatient because Ethan's trying to get this name out of this guy. I don't know who this guy is. It's never really revealed who he is.
Some Russian thug.
We don't even know if he's Russian. I don't know.
I thought he was Russian.
They were speaking Russian. That
Were
doesn't
they?
mean you are
Yeah.
Russian. You could just be multilingual.
It can just be, he could have just, used Dewey the lingo. Which
He could have been
Duolingo.
adopted.
Duolingo.
He could have been adopted, yes.
Really off the
There's
rails.
multiple ways to speak
So,
Russian.
but they get the information out of this guy, and Ethan obviously revives Claire, and,
Now, I have a note.
oh, we have notes already.
I do. I've taken extensive notes about this.
Okay.
What I like a lot about the first mission, that I think after the Phelps reveal at the end on the train, what I do miss in the mission movies is that you can clearly tell that it's Tom Cruise wearing a disguise. I just thought it was fun, and it really feels like kind of like an old school, like, you could tell, like, for us, we know that it's a disguise, but it's like, it's cool seeing, like, the practicality of it, because it reminds you of the TV show, where it's like, you could tell that, they weren't, like, a Russian diplomat or whatever. I like the practicality of it, where I think, even though it's very fun in the new ones, where it's like, he's Philip Seymour Hoffman in 3, even though it's not really him. I like the practicality of it.
Good point. So after Claire wakes up, the fuse lights, and we get the opening intro with Danny Elfman's version of the Mission Impossible score, which is top notch.
I didn't know it was Danny Elfman until today.
Very solid. Very solid musically. Videography of that intro. Don't watch it if you got certain conditions. It is very seizure-inducing. It's got remnants of the early 90s X-ray vision.
X-ray vision.
You know what I mean if you know. Featured in the X-Files too.
That's right. That's yes. Okay, now I know where you're coming from. What I do like though, I like the original logo, the original Mission Impossible logo,
The one that's on a slant.
like the slant and like the stamp look kind of thing. I miss that. I miss the blue-gray color scheme because then they went red for a long time.
Yes. Okay.
But
So then we open up with Jim Phelps, noted bad guy, John Voight, who obviously a lot of people were upset what wound up happening with this character after Jim Phelps was the main protagonist of the TV show. But it's John Voight. You should have seen it coming.
a perfectly normal human being who does not have any weird opinions.
This president is our only hope for humanity.
I like that.
God is hoping that the American people make the right choice.
I like that your John Voight is a mix of John Voight and like late Harrison
not
Ford,
Good. It's more Harrison Ford than that.
and also a mixture of the fake Batman talking about Harvey Dent.
I killed those people. Can we trust So John Voight obviously is like, no, I don't watch a fucking movie. I'm a theater guy. And then she's like, well,
We just so happen.
we have to have, I forget the line of the Ukraine, something
Ukraine
of the Ukraine.
Symphony Orchestra or
Now,
something.
I don't remember when we were like flying back from China and we were able to watch like Star Trek Nemesis on the way back because that's how I remember it being Star Trek Nemesis. It wasn't through little cassette tapes, right? Like we were were they advanced enough where we had?
I think
them
this was
play
like
They
people
just
played?
projected it on the screens built in. They weren't tape decks.
But like, what a
You could plug in headphones though.
But what a shitty little TV. Like, what if he did want to watch like a movie? First off, it would have to be full screen, but it's not even really full screen because the thing is like small. The TV was smaller than like my notebook right here. How do you watch anything like that?
All shows back then were full screen for the most part.
And
so.
I didn't know that you could even play a movie with a very little cassette tape. Well, no, technically not because
I mean, they had video games on cassette tapes,
That is true.
so that happened.
John, obviously.
And I guess speaking of those tape decks, like how many of them did they have to replace on that plane?
Because of how many explode.
And like,
And
do
what
they
if you
have-
don't like to smoke?
That's
the
I mean,
issue.
was he smoking at the same time or no?
No, he smoked so it wouldn't raise a flag.
Got it. Yeah, I knew there was conjunctive, but
Yeah.
I guess they allowed smoking on planes back then.
Yeah, well, this is probably, this is before.
Also, it was like a
9/11.
private charter.
Like that's gotta
Probably
suck.
not.
No, it was
then.
like a business class, like a very few people on it. All right, so getting back to the plot of the movie, Kittredge is on the recording. As we go through these, obviously, we'll be keeping note of certain things that occur during these movies and trying to rank them. But it's obviously a decent IMF message. Kittredge gets on there and says, "Well, look, fuck, we got issues, Jim, and this guy, it's not cool. He's trying to go after. I'm pretty sure they tell him about the knock list, but he only has half the
Yes.
list.
Yes.
All right, so he's only got half the list. He's going to be at this party. He's going to try to connect with this buyer. We want you to catch him on camera and then meet up when he gets to the buyer and arrest them both."
Why don't you describe what the knock list is for the viewers at home?
So the knock list. All right, John, knock list, go.
So the knock list contains the code names, but also the real names of agents. If that list were to come out, as Phelps says later in the movie, essentially ends like any like Cold War espionage. Everything's out in the open, which means those agents on the list can be set up to be killed. So it's not a very good thing for this list to be taken out. I'm willing to hear other viewpoints. If any of you agree with the knock list being out in the open, because I know a couple of you here are against the government. So.
This is not the official view of the podcast.
I don't know what you're referring to.
And I do think it's interesting years later that we kind of get this same approach in Skyfall in a lesser form in the Bond universe, with the names being revealed of agents.
Yeah.
But so all right, so we get the basic premise, what's going on. So we go, and it opens up. We're in a hotel room. Jim Phelps is speaking. He's laying out a game plan for his team of agents, who he's been told who's going to be on the team.
A very good scene, because really sets up that, like, you don't really spend a lot of time with them all together like that. You could believe that they all know each other very well, and they're all comfortable, and they all actually kind of like each other.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was this part of the Lucas notes?
The Lucas notes.
So you didn't finish the Light Diffuse pod. I'm
No.
pretty sure this was a George Lucas note that he had to set up the sting and it kind of have an explaining scene that went into it. So I think actually we have George Lucas to thank for
Well,
this scene.
that's like why you have to thank De Palma for the opening crawl in Star Wars.
Yes, which
They
I
were all
didn't
friends.
know. Yes.
Yep, they're all friends. Him, Spielberg, De Palma, Coppola.
Or for rewriting it, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So they're explaining it, and you got your team. We're not going to focus on every single member, but obviously, Jack is there, and he's the computer guy. He's the guy, and he's like, I'm not going to get to wear a tux. He's like, no, shut the fuck up, Jack.
And this is after like the Mighty Ducks success. Like, Emilio's been in a few things.
Yes.
Up until then.
Yeah. So everybody's worried about what they're going to be able to wear. Ethan's pissed off because Jim's wife, Claire, can't make a fucking cup of coffee to save her life. And it's shit. It was shit in Kyiv, and now it's shit in Prague, and the team is desperate for caffeine.
That's one of my other theories why he wanted to kill off the team, because they were making fun of her coffee. You could tell the look on his face. He's like, good one, guys. But really in his head, he's like, those fucking guys are talking about my wife's coffee.
So they go through it, and then we get, little snippets of the team. Jack shows Ethan the fucking gum, and Matthew, I know you and John really want to get into the gum.
Please, somebody explain to me how the gum works.
So the premise, before Matthew goes into the technology with his advanced degrees, we've got red light, green light. There's half the stick is red, half the stick is green. In theory, if you connect the two, Matthew, as Jack would say,
I guess Asa lasagna.
So Matthew, theoretically, how would this work in the real world?
So I'm wondering if there's something inside the red and green parts that you have to like smush it together, because the red and green parts are connected in the middle, so it's not like immediate contact explosive. I guess you have to smush down what's in each of those sections to cause a chemical reaction in order to cause this explosion. But honestly, what he could have done too is just offer Jim a stick of gum. Asa lasagna.
Now, that's gonna be our first branded T-shirt. Hasta lasagna. Get it now at theentityistheparty.com.
So don't have the exact science, but I guess baking soda and vinegar.
Now,
that causes explosions.
Now it also has to be wet too. We saw.
Does it?
It was when he knocked over, because it has to stick.
So I was wondering how it stuck.
Yeah, because when he was in the. This is jumping ahead. When he was talking to Kittredge in the aquarium restaurant, when he threw it, he also knocked over a glass of water, making it wet so that way it would stick on the glass.
But the thing is, I understood that one, but then what did he do on the
train
we'll
one?
get
But
to
we'll
that.
get to that. Yeah, but I was thinking the same thing, unless the power of the wind. I don't. The gum.
I don't think it needs to get wet.
No, it does. Because how does it stick?
Yeah, how does it?
You can't
stick?
pull gum. No, but you can't pull gum out of it.
Have you tried throwing a stick of gum at a
You
Yeah,
have
but
to
if you
chew it to
press
get it
it-
sticky.
No, I
guys.
mean on the when. All right, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. The scene has not come for many.
Now
Hustle
also
is on.
about the gum itself, like, because he used it twice in the movie, right?
So
only
how much
twice.
gum does he have? Is the-
Yes.
I guess
did
you
he
gotta-
get a pack?
Is it like a Wrigley's pack? Like,
Is
do
it
you
Big
get like a
League
pack
Chew?
of 6?
Does he get a baseball card with it?
Now, I wonder how many times, how many IMF agents they went through with people accidentally chewing the gum, unless it was a prototype. But that gum looked really good, and if it was like a double flavored gum, I would want to try
It looked like juicy fruit. Honestly, I got a feeling that they just colored juicy fruit.
I think it was the 5 gum, because that's what the 5.
No,
gums
5
look
gum did not. I don't think 5 gum existed in 1996.
We need our
We're gonna
official
need our-
data checker.
Yeah, we'll
All
check.
right, so while he's checking
Yeah,
that,
so we get the Jack scene, and we get Jack then showing them how the glasses are going to work in terms of recording.
also a cool scene.
yeah,
Because
and then
you could, obviously they're not recording off the glasses, so they got a different recording on the thing. I don't know. I liked how it was done.
yeah, and then Jim's like, "Hello, these roads are very confusing, Claire. Go fucking explore a little bit." And she's like, "What do you think I've been doing all morning, Jim?"
It may have been a. By the way, it may have been a 2-in-1.
Oh,
let me see
Green,
this.
red.
Oh.
Wait, is 2-in-1 like is that an actual gum thing, or is that?
It's,
made
I mean,
for the
that's
movie?
what it was branded as in the movie. I will do a fact check on if 2-in-1.
Remember what was the watermelon bubble gum I used to like? What brand was that? I used to love that
Well, let's go through the gum
bubble
brands.
gum. All right, well, I don't know if that's.
Juicy fruit. I'm assuming juicy.
It was not a juicy fruit. No, it was like a. Oh.
Could you guys blow a bubble with bubble gum?
Yes, because we have physical skills.
So 2-in-1 was a prop name, it looks like, but it was something like that.
Oh,
Like, it was
gum.
probably just 2 pieces of gum stuck together.
I don't know,
Gotcha.
gum is
Like a
fun.
Wrigley's. Anyway.
We're really under Wrigley's.
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 All right, so
Wrigley
we've got the team trying to plan, and then we open in this grand stateroom or whatever this place is where this is all going down, and there's a million frickin' staircases in this opening little snippet of the scene. And so you've got the team. Ethan is in his old man. I forget who he's supposed to be, a senator or something, some lawman, and he looks like he's from the great state of I don't know, Kentucky,
Alabama or Kentucky.
Alabama.
I think we really missed out on some really heavy Tom Cruise costume performances with his accent and everything. I feel like we could have got a lot of great like courtroom dramas with him in like the end of the 90s.
Jesus. So they identify their target, the team, and then if you're not paying attention, there's some other little things in the background of every shot that are interesting, but we'll get into that later because it kind of spoils the plot. But they identify the target, and then Ethan and oh God, help me out, Sarah, right? So Sarah comes and says, "Oh, hey, do you remember me?" Blah blah blah. She's already at the party, and so she's going to be the one that's granting him access to the room where the knock list is. And so they get to the elevator. She uses her finger to identify herself.
Well, they
and-
also did the perfume thing, which I like.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah,
They had,
they target the guy.
I forget her name. The blonde one.
Jesus.
Because I keep thinking Sarah, but it's not Sarah.
Yeah, she doesn't get a lot of lines. She
No, but
just
she had a
dies
cool-
very coolly.
She wore cool sunglasses.
Yeah, and she goes out in a burst of flames.
But I like that whole setup, the spray thing to be able to track him. I like the really cool, simple like espionage tricks that they had to do in it.
Yeah. So they get to the elevator, and then obviously the fingerprinting is not identifying her, and they start to say, well, you know somebody on your staff named Jack, and obviously they're ribbing on Emilio Estevez here at this point, who's trying to fucking evade elevators and not die, and he's not, getting the job done, despite Jim Phelps having computer access as well, and not doing anything
And
to
I
help
don't
him.
know why you needed a hacker if Jim was also hacking into everything.
Unless But then I was gonna say, like, unless they didn't know Jim had access, but Jim Stanley said, "I'm opening the doors for you." So if he could do it remotely, why did they have? I'm trying to.
Why was
There
Jack
has to be a
there?
reason he had to.
Unless
be on
it
the
was
elevator.
because that's the only way he could access the key card reader.
You're the
thing.
tech
Yeah.
guy. You would know better than
No,
us
I think
how
he
that
But
only
like,
works.
also, how could he hack into a database, but he can't hack into an elevator? Unless Jim was overwriting him. I don't know.
That is true.
But it just seemed very sus.
Well, they're ribbing him, and he's, Emilio Estevez is taking it in stride, and finally, the guard asks for the ID, buys them a little bit more time, and finally, thank God she gets recognized to head down the elevator. Tom Cruise goes up to this thing and, like, hugs it. I never knew why he hugs it. I still don't understand that part of the scene. He literally goes up to this thing and, like...
I think for the seat, because of the glasses, that's where he put the glasses down to record
but
it.
why is he why is he
We
giving
had
out
the
bear hug?
seat, if the angle that he had it was enough for him to put the glasses down so they could record the guy in the act.
Because he still asks her to put something else under it because it's not the right angle. So I always found the little scene odd. Just gonna be honest with you. But anyway, so he gets in the seat. He's like, "Yeah, we're not the right angle. We're not the right angle." And then him and Sarah figure it out, get the right angle. They're like, "All right, game. We got this. We're gonna record this guy. He's going down." Get to the elevator. Well, what the fuck? It's going up when they press the button. That's not good. The bad guy's here. And they're like, "Oh shit, he's headed your way, Ethan." And then
Jack can't hack a simple elevator.
and
so.
Jack literally is the guy, as Kittredge said, he can hack into anything. I'm doubting his skills at this time.
Jack is having an off night.
Yeah.
His girl Sarah's there, who he was apparently going to go on a date with. Then Tom Cruise said it was off, and he's flustered.
And I'm also wondering, like, why, if he's such a great hacker, how is Jim Phelps outdoing him? How?
Because
It was an inside job.
inside job. What I do like about this is just the scene. Like, there's not like it's not like an action scene. There's not like freaking like people jumping off of things about like a lot of action, so to say. But it moves like at an excellent pace. Like the momentum of that scene, like just gets from boom to boom to boom. I don't know. I just like the pacing of it.
It's a good pace.
It's a good pace.
So-
And I like the POV in the beginning. I forgot to say, the POV shot of him walking in because of the glasses.
Yes.
That's a classic De Palma thing. Mm-hmm. Something
Yes.
I wish they would do more. But go ahead.
So they get to the elevator and shit, it's going up, and our big bad is right upstairs. He's coming down, and they're like, "Well, what are we gonna do?" We're like, "All right, I guess we're gonna take his exit." And Jack can't open the freaking doors, but thank God Jim Phelps is here overseeing the operation. He finds a way to open the doors, and then they escape, or they get to the bottom of the elevator. Don't get squished, foreshadowing. And then the guy comes in, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna steal this fucking knock list. It's right here. Nobody's gonna stop me." Well, he's being recorded. Didn't notice that there's just a pair of glasses there for no fucking reason. And then somehow Ethan and Sarah escape through a hatch. I don't know where they escaped through. I'm always confused where they exited and how they got out of that elevator.
Guessing there was an emergency hatch at the bottom. in case.
And it led to some stairway somehow, but either way, they get out. And then they're like, "All right, well, team, we got this. We're almost there. We caught them on video, and now what we got to do is we just got to, wait for the buyer to meet the seller, and we got this. We're going home. America wins again." And, well, unfortunately, the guy goes, and he's like, "All right, I'm going to go back and use the elevator and get the fuck out of here." And all of a sudden, it just starts going up. And Jack, because he doesn't know what's going on at any point in this movie, it's like, I didn't do that. And he's going up, and he's going up at a really fast pace. Mm-hmm. Now, Jack, I've got several quips with Jack in the scene, is not trying to, like, say, "All right, well, this is going up very fast. Let me go to the side or try to get to the side."
That ladder he was hiding in.
Yeah, it's not trying to move at all. And then Jim's like, "All right, cut the power." And Jack, like, can't use a knife.
Yes. a very thin wire.
Very dull blade, it seems like.
And obviously, he didn't cut the power because it didn't stop.
And the thing is, when he gets to the top where he gets stabbed, like, he couldn't, like, try laying down to avoid it. He just, like, sat up right into it.
Well, because there was no way for him. He knew he was done. There was no way for him to avoid
But,
it.
like, if he looked up, he could have been like, oh, maybe I could try
He's probably
laying to
in
the
shock
side.
that a bunch of very sharp objects are coming to his face in a quick manner.
They like show these mechanisms like go down, and it's like, oh my god, Emilio Estevez is scared. Get frightened, and then all of a sudden he looks up and his eye gets protruded by this shocking thing in his elevator.
It's the worst, like, in terms of gruesome death scene, I think, in the whole series. There's nobody gets it as bad as Emilio in Mission Impossible 1.
No,
And
it's
the
the
thing
worst.
is, after the next, like, everything goes to the next scene and they're outside doing all that, imagine the cleanup from that mission.
Somebody goes and goes, why is there a smell in here? Oh my god!
Like, they can't use that hall for days. They have to clean up the elevator. They have to damn it.
And then I have to call that congressman. Hey, so we just want to ask some follow-up questions about that. What are you talking about?
He's fly fishing.
He's fly fishing.
And then he's being shown pictures of Emilio Estevez hanging onto an elevator shaft by an eyeball socket. It's fucking gruesome, man.
And why
did Emilio agree to that death?
Now, here's the interesting part about it I was thinking of. I can't attest for the the actresses in it, how famous they were at the time, but it was kind of a gamble for them in the beginning to be like, okay, you got Emilio Estevez, famous actor, you got Jon Voight, famous, and I'm assuming a couple of either all three of the women, or all two of them or whatever, were also famous in their own ways. To just kill them all off at the beginning, at least if you're watching it when it came out, had to have been like a shocking kind of thing. Because
I mean the team. I can't speak to how famous the team were. Max was a very famous actress, Vanessa Redgrave. Yeah, it was a risk.
yeah, because nobody knew at the time that Phelps was going to come back at the end of it. But that's two pretty solid actors in the 80s and 90s, and they're like, they're dead in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah. So obviously, Jim's like, man down, Ethan, man down. And this is not good because Sarah no longer has a date for later in the night.
And a very cool composed shot of Ethan and Sarah against the wall, like the nice close-up of the two of them, and you got the blue and the yellow hues in the back with the smoky fog. It sets it up very well.
So we got a man down, and Jim's like, all right, I'm coming, because obviously this is kind of fucked. We got a man down. So he's like, all right, and I knocked over a chair as accidentally as I possibly can. And
I don't think it would have mattered. I don't see what the chair had to do with anything, but okay.
And Ethan, I'm coming. And then the guy comes out, and Ethan's like, well, the what's the line? It's out in the open.
It's like something's out in the open. Not the package, but it's something like that.
It's out in the open. And like, what do we do? And Jim's like, he gets to the bridge, and he's like, crap, I'm being followed. And Ethan's like, well, can you get rid of him? He's like, no. I'm like, all right, well, fuck, Jim's fucked now. And then, he's like, abort. And Ethan's like, no, we ain't aborting. The fucking knock list is out there, man. I'm gonna die. Yeah. And Jim's like, fucking abort. I'm the fucking leader. And Ethan's like, no, I'm not fucking aborting. So he fucking, I always think, so I want to stop here. What if Ethan aborts? And he says to the team, abort. What happens?
I think, if Ethan...
People
Honestly,
don't die.
He probably just knew his personality and that he would never give up.
That's what I was thinking, that he knew Ethan too well to think that he would actually...
Because that's the only way this works. Because if he aborted, well, you're done.
Well, that he would still...
Movie over.
I think he would have to think on his feet, but he would still have the fake knock list to sell and get the money. Mm-hmm. So I got...
Well, he wouldn't have gotten he wouldn't have got the $6 million.
Yeah.
And then he would have had to figure out how to get the actual knock list.
Yeah.
And there's no way that Jim Phelps is climbing, going down the damn thing like that. He's not hovering. It's not possible. So stuff starts to happen. Obviously, we get the famous scene. So I think it starts with him running up to try to find
Claire.
No,
running Phelps. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
he hears the
splash.
No, not the splash. It's the gunshot first,
Yes.
right?
He
hears
sees
the
it,
gunshot,
and it does that zoom into his face
Yeah.
after he sees the gunshot. Yes.
Yeah, but first he's running to go, and then he passes Claire. Then he hears the gunshot. After Jim had said cut off radio communications, right?
That's what I said. Yeah.
Which I never understood why did Jim not cut it off, and then I guess how did he hear it?
Maybe he didn't cut it
For him to
cut it
lure
off
him
for
in.
Ethan. He probably because he was in the end he was framing Ethan the whole time. I don't think
he
he
wanted
had any,
Ethan to know
He wanted
everything.
Ethan. He wanted Ethan to be the one that was framed.
So then we see the very hilarious scene of Jim Phelps obviously shooting himself, and Ethan somehow does not question the image that showed up.
He doesn't think about the arm angle that you could see clearly that you're shooting yourself. But even then, why would you shoot yourself like that?
It's very odd. I guess maybe in the heat of the moment, and you were worried that somebody's dying.
But why couldn't he have done it where he was like shot in the back? It would have been easier. Is it like he still would have pulled it off fine?
There's no way he would have shot himself in the back. He doesn't.
No, someone else. No, what I'm saying is someone shot him in the back, and he does the blood thing, which you see later. But it's like he grabs his back and he like pulls his hand. It would have accomplished it the same way.
He didn't
instead of
even have
taking
to show any video of anything. All
Yeah,
he
he
had to do
didn't
was
have
a
to show the
gunshot
gun.
in
It
the
could have been
air.
like a sniper.
Because he threw blood on himself.
Like, I think De Palma just thought it looked cool. You needed that visual of the gun.
I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I'm glad it's
No,
there.
it's great. It's great, but it's also like, if you're a trained agent.
So what I want to do a couple times in this episode is, what if we were trying to do the same thing? So, John, if you were Jim Phelps trying to, say that you were murdered, I'm trying to think how badly you would screw that up.
All right. Well, there's several ways I can screw this up. So I have to do it exactly like Phelps did it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, how would you try to do it? You have to do it in the same style. You can't
so I'll
say
do it the
I'm
same
not going to be
style.
on the bridge or something like
All right.
that.
So like, well, how I would screw it up. One, I would screw up the arm angle more because I would not be able to bend it in a certain way. I would look to my right to make sure that my angle was adjusted. And then forget that I'm on candid camera. Now, let's say I get past that point. I somehow pulled it off. Then the blood thing's the next thing. Because I don't like a mess on my hands. And I don't like anything getting on my lenses. So I'm trying to grab the blood, but I can't feel it anywhere on the bridge. I drop it over the river, and I'm like, oh, fuck. Now, if I get past that, then we have the hard part of me being like, okay, I'm going to do this movement and just throw myself off the bridge, which I don't think I would be able to do in the way that he did it, where he didn't die. I would go like either head first, or I would like slam into it. Because, the force that you go down, like, you can hit it. It'll feel like bricks if you go down wrong. And then I'd have to, and say like I do get through that and I fall into the water. Then you got to worry about me swimming. And I'm not a good swimmer. So there are like, I wouldn't make it past the first part of the plan. Like, I wouldn't even make it to the bridge because I wouldn't know where I'm going. Like, I didn't know we were on like the road near us was Route 38 for like 20 years.
Jesus Christ.
So.
All right, Matthew, same question.
So I do have a question. Where did he keep that blood?
And
Did it in a water bottle? Like, what
It
was
was
the
like a
story?
bag. It was like a bag.
A bag of blood. They just threw on-
also,
I mean, I feel like I would use real squibs. I wouldn't just throw a pool of blood on myself.
How would squibs help? He didn't have a fucking third-person view to see a squib shot.
As Ethan is like coming up to like have his
So
guns
he's
go
just
off
going off like but where is he getting shot from?
from somewhere
See,
far away.
you would overthink this.
He could
The
get
squibs
sniped.
wouldn't go off, and you'd be standing there like, I'm shot! Just jump off the bridge.
I probably would overthink it.
but also, what I want to know is like, I know it's later in the night, but it's probably like 8 o'clock in Prague or something like that. How is nobody else around that area? Like, imagine like he's trying to do this operation, and then like, some guy just sees him shooting himself. What are you doing? Filming a motion picture for the president.
Oh my god.
So, what about you?
I would clearly drop the gun first. I forgot how to take the safety off. And then I would just I would be too theatric in my life.
Oh my
God. Ooh! He'd be like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And then I would totally botch. I would hit my head, and I'd probably concuss myself before I fell into the river, and I would drown.
Would you use your dying Yoda voice?
Yes, it would be really theatrical, but I would die in real life.
Now, when he shot the gun, was there just like a blank in the gun to make the noise?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way it could really make sense.
Yeah. It sounded exactly like the PP gun in Bond. I wonder if it's the same sound.
It could be.
Yeah. All right, we got Jim out of the picture. He's dead. And then Ethan's like looking on the bridge and there's nobody there. He looks over the bridge and sees nothing. He's like, all right, I guess Jim's dead. And then
Don't have to call the Coast Guard.
Yeah, and then he's trying to call everybody to abort. And he's looking to where, like, Sarah theoretically is, and, like, he's like, Sarah, abort! And, like, she's not, they cut off radio communication. Like, so she's fucked. So he's like, alright, I'm gonna start running. And then he gets to his part, and then all of a sudden, kablam! Boom. There's a death. And our good friend, Hannah, has been exploded. Now,
Who he thought was Claire.
he thought Claire was in the car. So he's thinking Claire's dead. But we know, in reality, Hannah had gotten into the car, and fortunately, she is toast. So that happens. He's like, oh, crap. All right, my team is dying at an exponential rate. I need to go save Sarah. So then we see Sarah. She's going up, and the guy she's been tailing, he goes up to this fence. And then all of a sudden, he just, like, gets pulled in, and it's like this weird fashion. It's very scary. Like, if you watch this as a young child, that scene was really scary, actually, as a kid. I remember watching that. And then she walks up, and, like, Sarah is, like, on the level of Jack. They were made for each other. How did you get close enough to be stabbed?
That's what I was thinking as well. So, like, he's stabbing, I don't know what the
Yeah,
guy's
like,
name was.
it's clear that...
So that she clearly saw Jean Reno. The reveal later that it's Jean Reno. But you think Jean Reno just... And they stared at each other for, like, a good, 2 or 3 seconds. So was he just, like... So he pulls it out and he's like, alright. Stabbing. Why does she not move?
Yeah, so she gets stabbed, and then Ethan comes up, and he's like, well, fuck. She's dead. He's like, alright, over it. Check this guy's coat. The knock list is gone. Night ruined. Right? So now every team member that he can think of is dead, and I'm assuming he thought Hannah was in the car with Claire.
Yeah, Hannah's kind
Because
of
he doesn't say anything about Hannah, so I'm thinking he's assuming they were together.
Yeah, she's kind of the forgotten
She is forgotten. Yeah. So, alright, so then he's like, alright, crap, well, I gotta go make a fucking phone call, and he uses a toll booth, or a phone booth, which I love phone booths in movies.
Mm-hmm.
I love the sound of the phone booth. And
yes.
everything about
the
it.
click.
Yes, the click, everything about it. So he's like, alright, he calls, he has to give his code, and then...
I don't understand how whatever he puts on the phone makes it a secure line.
So he doesn't put anything on the secure. He says, go secure.
But he took off the bottom thing, he plugged something in it,
So maybe
in the
it, like,
receiver.
maybe it like distorts the voice or something. I don't know. It's very weird.
Well, he goes secure with Kittredge. He said, Kittredge, the list is gone. They're all dead.
Yeah, good. A very good Tom Cruise.
Yes, they're all dead. And Kittredge is like,
Fuck.
all right, well, chill. All right, let's bring you in. Let's figure this out. Meet at, what does he call the location? Green location, right?
And
in 1 hour.
which is a surprise.
Yes, he's like, you're in Prague? What the hell's Kittredge doing here? So, he hangs up the phone, and you see Tom walking up now in this big open square in Prague. And he's walking up to the aquarium
Very
restaurant.
cool location.
Yes.
Very, very cool. I don't know if it was a real restaurant. I doubt it. But if it was, I would like to visit in Prague.
Yes. So it seems like one of those old-timey restaurants where you can't afford anything.
And it's like right in the middle of all these other brown buildings. Like it just sticks out like a sore thumb.
And I think they said why Prague was a good location for this movie is because it was one of the only places not destroyed in World War II. So a lot of the old architecture is still up.
Just the whole opening half hour of that movie in Prague, everything's lit great. You brought in the fog, the blue lights, the yellow lights. It's got like a very nice warm tone to it, which is nice to look at instead of the flat gray look that a lot of movies are doing now.
Mm-hmm. So Ethan walks in. He looks extremely disheveled. He sits down, and Kittredge is fantastic in this scene.
It's everybody. When I was watching this scene, and like, what's great about the scene, besides the dialogue's great, but the music, that very slow suspense building, it gets louder and louder and more screwed up, and more puts you more on edge. This, like, everybody talks about the Batman and the Joker scene of Dark Knight, how they kind of do the same thing with the music and the intensity. But I don't think people owe enough to the fact that this scene was the originator of that type of chaotic interview kind of thing.
Look at that.
Yeah.
We've got an originator. Matthew, your thoughts?
About the scene or about the music?
The music.
Music
You
was
are
solid.
the preeminent Danny Elfman fan, even though I had to tell you that 3 minutes before the show
I mean,
started.
I didn't. The film was '96. I was young. I was very young. So, I mean, I do agree on the musical score throughout the entire movie. It seemed to be on point for each scene, and I agree. I agree.
Especially
obviously-
for that scene.
Yeah, so
Especially for
Kittredge
that.
starts very apologetic and compassionate, and it's like he flips a switch halfway through, but he says, I'm very sorry. I know Jim meant a lot to you. Blah blah blah. He gives the whole spiel about here's a passport. We'll get you through Canada, and we'll debrief you in Langley. And he's seems trying to seem like he's very caring, even though we know that switch is going to flip in a second. And Ethan starts having moments of talking like he has moments of self-pity, and then Kittredge is like, well, yeah, you did get your team killed, essentially, to paraphrase it. And then it's like a switch flips in Ethan's mind, and all of a sudden he's like, well, why was there another IMF team there?
Well, what's great about this is the reaction of Kittredge, who you can tell from a mile away that he's lying by how he's got his head and his face. He's like, what other IMF? It's like that scene in Revenge of the Sith where he's like killing younglings, and like he has to hide his face. It's kind of like that. He's like, what? What do you mean another IMF? What are you talking about?
I don't know, guy with a bow tie.
Oh, speaking of, all right, so yeah, he goes through the other IMF team, right? And then he's like, boom, 12, and then Bowtie, 12 o'clock. A real shit job by Bowtie, who has clear line of sight of Ethan to not see him pulling the gum out and be like, that's odd. Maybe I should alert Mr. Eugene Kittredge.
This is true, yes.
But he a real shit job
He
by
had
the
a whole
IMF
team, and none of their eyes
And
were focused on the fact that...
Also, why didn't any of them change? Do something, put a hat on.
Yeah, it was surprising there was no mask usage there either.
No, surprisingly not.
Why was the whole team just sitting there in the open? Have some fake guests there too.
So obviously the conversation very, very quickly escalates, and then you start getting the close-up shots that are like under the
Dutch
chin.
angles.
The Dutch angles,
Dutch
as
angles.
the pros would say it, but it's the best part of the scene is these Dutch angles, and you got Ethan and Kittredge going at each other, and then Ethan realizes that this whole thing was a mole hunt and everybody was killed because they're trying to find a mole. So
And Kittredge has that great line.
yes, so it's a paraphrase. I think it's, you want to shake hands with the devil, that's fine with me. I just want to make sure that you do it in hell.
Yeah.
Which is, I want to shake the hands of the man who wrote that line.
So either David Koepp or Robert Towne wrote that.
Yes.
I don't know who that would be. Who would have written that,
But it's a great line, and Kittredge is obviously his emotional level is rising because he thinks that Hunt is a mole who has betrayed his country and has murdered all these people.
it has the famous Ethan Hunt line, Kittredge, you've never seen me so upset.
Yes.
Probably the defining line of the first movie.
Yes, you've never seen me very upset.
Yeah,
I think
very
is the
upset.
line. Yeah.
Is it the best scene in the movie? It's certainly, I think, well, no, because you got the Langley, that the Langley heist is the most famous scene, but
In terms of just emotional dialogue, probably yes. I think it's my favorite scene in the movie.
it is.
Yes, because Tom Cruise and Jesus, help me out. The actor who plays
I had it.
Kittredge, Henry Czerny.
Yes.
They do a fantastic job. The score, everything escalates, and then you slowly see Tom Cruise pulling out the gum, and then
Missed by bow tie guy.
missed by bow tie guy and the rest of the second.
That
IMF
bow
team.
tie guy would have been me because I would have been focused on like the food that I was getting because they probably serve. What kind of food do you think they serve there? Do you think do you think it's a seafood
That
place?
was like,
Or is that a very like an Italian?
I would imagine they serve some sort of seafood, having all those tanks.
You would think, unless you don't want it to be morbid,
I
that
don't know
you're
what food
eating.
Prague is known for.
Well, with the Red Lobster, they have the lobsters out.
Feel free to-
Do that? I think that's a thing in the past, right? They don't do the tanks anymore at the Red Lobster.
I mean, this was 1996, so
well, I don't mean. I mean just current.
Well,
They-
wasn't the Red Lobster like bankrupt?
I think they like shut down a lot of restaurants. So after their endless shrimp promo that clearly backfired.
Matthew loves.
When was the last time you went to a
Loves
Red
Endless
Lobster? Have you
It's been a while. I couldn't. The last time I went there, I figured out I was allergic to their biscuits, so that kind of.
Wait, what?
Are those the really good biscuits too?
How are you
Yes.
allergic to the biscuit? What are these, peanut oil?
Soy.
Uh,
Anyway, soy cast.
Soycast.
hasta lasagna.
Said.
That's another way. That's another way Matthew would have died, because he would have got to the table and besides the dialogue, he would have started eating something.
Now, here's the Matthew wouldn't have eaten all day either.
Yes.
He would have been like, Matt, what did you eat for lunch? I had to skip. had to take the plane to.
I mean, if IMF's anything like my current job, you don't get lunch breaks.
Jesus. So the scene quickly escalates. The gum comes out. Red light, green light.
Uses the water to get it wet so
yeah,
that
I've-
it sticks.
yeah.
I'm not sure exactly. We'll need to rewatch that scene several
Yeah.
times.
Yes.
Apparently,
it
there's
was-
also a 1 second scene where they had to use a stuntman that I heard on the Light Diffuse podcast, and they actually put Tom Cruise's face over the stuntman. I watched this movie 2 nights ago, and I watched it again tonight, and I cannot find the scene. It's that well done, where I cannot see where that is happening.
Now, also,
Apparently, Cruz hurt his ankle during that scene too.
Really?
Yeah, as he's running away from the water.
Oh, this is
Matty, fun facts.
Matthew came with facts.
Now so this is also still a very important scene because it's the first real iconic Ethan Hunt run.
Yes.
Now we're gonna do later in the series ranking the Ethan runs throughout the series, but
But this is the preeminent run of this whole movie.
The
Because he
iconic-
doesn't
it's the
really
iconic shot.
he doesn't run.
it's a slow motion.
There's no other
run.
runs in the movie.
No, when he's running,
Not
to the
like
bridge,
that.
He's running to the bridge.
I think-
No, I mean at
They're
any later
escaping
point.
something.
This is the latest run in the whole movie. I don't think there's any other run.
In terms of like the crew's quote unquote.
I'm
run,
saying I don't think he even runs again. Tell me where he runs again. He doesn't run. I think he doesn't even run a half mile in this movie. It's insane when you think about the others.
That's right. I don't think he. No, he didn't run in Langley. He didn't run.
And most of the
on a
runs,
train.
most of the runs in this movie were off camera when he's going to try to. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's kind of crazy. So all right. So the cool scene. So let's not undersell the scene. He throws the gum. The fucking tanks start fucking exploding.
The waiter who spots it, who goes through the glass, if he's not dead, he's got life-altering injury. He got it the worst. Bow tie guy probably lost a limb. Doing nothing.
And I think Ethan jumps over the waiter when he gets outside.
Yes, I think so.
Yes. So, and then he starts, and Matthew's got the clip pulled up here. So, this waiter, this stunt guy, what a freaking job, man. He went flying. Kittredge just like, God! Who didn't see the gum? He's tipped
Oh, he
off.
jumps over the table.
No, watch. He jumps over a guy right here. Right here.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I didn't notice
He's like,
that.
get the hell out of the way.
And that's probably where he hurt his ankle right there.
Yeah, and then
I
they do
didn't
the
notice
slow
that.
motion, and then he starts freaking hauling.
icon-
And these people in the freaking square are like, what the hell happened? Our favorite restaurant is exploded.
Can we just give our quick props to Mr. See, he knocks it with the water.
He may have just
No.
accidentally knocked.
How can it stick without water? You need saliva
Well,
or wet water to make something stick.
well,
You can't just throw a dry piece of gum at a wall and expect for it to stick.
All right. We'll talk about this when we get to the helicopter
But
scene.
can we give our quick props to De Palma though? Just in terms of like, we're only how many minutes are we into this movie?
We
30.
are 30
We're only
minutes.
32 minutes into this, and it's already like
Leave this running.
Yeah.
It'll help us run.
you have like such a well crafted piece.
Also, that restaurant was not up to code. Like, every single fish tank exploded from that one tank going down. Like, everything.
I hope those tanks were clean.
So now, obviously, the next scene is Ethan's going to go back to the safe house.
Mm-hmm.
So another spiraling staircase. It seemed like they really enjoyed staircases.
He
And
really enjoyed his wide angle lens.
so, and then as you like to say, the janitor or the maintenance people in this place probably hated Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
'Cause he immediately takes his jacket off, takes a bulb and smashes it, and uses the glass as a kind of alarm for intruders. So he starts spraying the glass outside the room.
Now,
Now, that left a lot of glass from that one light bulb. There had to be more than one in that.
this is an IMF safe house, but I'm assuming there's other tenants living in that area or in the building. Like, he doesn't care about the other people. Like, what if you have like just like an old lady? She has to walk to get to her house, and then like she all of a sudden her feet are covered in glass shards.
I love how he sees the chair like, oh, that's such a monumental thing. The fucking chair was knocked over.
Even the lighting in this scene, like you have like those shadows. Like even if the lighting might not even make sense, the fact that you have like that dynamic shape of the face with the lighting is like sometimes in some of the newer ones or like newer movies in general, everything's really flatly lit.
Now, you know what's funny? Because they showed a scene of him having like 1 million passports.
Yes.
I wonder if the Kittredge gave him the passport tipped him off. 'Cause why would Kittredge have to give him a passport?
I didn't think about that.
So obviously he's, searching for money. He's searching for a gun. And, he's like, all right, well, my team's dead. They think I'm the mole.
So it is the Matthew part of the podcast where we're going to talk.
And Matthew, so we're going to start getting into the technology of Mission Impossible 1. So obviously he finds out that it was this, Kittredge tells him it was job 316.
314.
Or 314, I'm sorry. And he's going to go on the internet on Jim's computer. And, he starts just searching, for job 314.
Obviously can't find anything.
And then my favorite search, though, is not job 314, but it's max.com.
Why would he search
Well,
for Max?
He wanted to watch some old reruns of home movies, which is on Max.com.
Yes. I'm just glad he didn't go to WhiteHouse.com. If you're a 90s kid, you understand why.
No,
And he searches for Max.com, he searches for Job, he searches for Bible.
Like, what is this internet that he's using, Matthew? Because I had the internet at this close to this age, and
I mean, it looks like it's an internally developed search engine. I don't know why the internal engine would have Max.com articles on it.
so obviously he sees the Bible all of a sudden. He's like, oh shit, it's the book of Job. This guy's a fucking religious fanatic. So he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go look up Job 3:14. And then now he's got to figure out, all right, well, who do I send this to? And Matthew, again, can you please explain to me how he does this? Because first he searches for the Bible and finds like a million entries.
And he finds, and one of the entries is Bible.blindness. so
he finds a Book of Job discussion group and then uses Max at Job 3:14. There's no .com.
And I don't think colons back in the day were valid emails. And it's just message from Job. I guess maybe they're usernames, they're not email addresses, but why does a username have an ad in it like
Now,
that?
I said when we were watching the movie, like, this is on like unless it was like a fake website made by Phelps. Imagine just strolling up on the Book of Job discussion group and seeing, like, the goods are tainted. We have to meet here. And it's like, well, I better bring my Bible.
And so
Something's wrong with the law.
And then he's going through every language sending these emails. He doesn't know what language it is. And it ends up just being English anyway.
Now, that would fuck me up. Like, if they wanted me to be a part of the IMF, it's like, all right, you have to learn these languages. And I'm like, no, I'm out.
Yeah, they didn't have Google Translate back then, so you really need to know your stuff.
So ultimately, he, goes through this, but then all of a sudden he's like half asleep and he hears glass and he's like, fuck the IMF, or the CIA, Kittredge, they fucking found me. But then what does he see? He sees Jim Phelps, blood all over his fucking hands, walk into the room. And he's like, fucking looks like death, essentially. But somehow he's fucking alive. And I think he's like something like Ethan, like, what the fuck, man?
It's like that scene in Batman, the animated series, where Batman's dreaming about Two-Face after the accident. Two-Face is like, why didn't you save me?
So Jim reaches out, and then all of a sudden, it goes to what is reality. It's Claire. And Ethan flips the fuck out, pulls out his gun. And he's like, well, what the fuck, man? You were in the car. You're supposed to be dead. And, they go through this back and forth of how are you here, blah, blah, blah. He's like not trusting anybody at this point. And she explains that, I think she explains that she had heard the gunshot as well and started running to the bridge. He's like, bullshit, I was at the bridge. And for some reason, he accepts it, though. I think there's a little bit of doubt in his mind about the situation.
Well, what makes this work, what makes her believable, is her reaction when they're on the bed after the uncomfortable pat down of her, which I don't think they meant for it to be that uncomfortable, but it was. But when she kept saying, it's 4 o'clock, gotta meet, 0400, 4 o'clock, she makes her really believable that she's, like, fucking all over the place, that she's confused, she's scared. Mm-hmm. Even though we know at the end that she was a part of the whole thing, but that scene alone, I would have been like, I would have believed her.
Yeah. So, obviously, he's like, all right, hey, Mrs. Phelps, how are you doing with my hands? And it's interesting, but, we get past this, and then I'm pretty sure we follow this up by saying, all right, well, I got to get the fucking knock list. And she's like, you're fucking crazy. But that's how I get to Job. Yeah, and ultimately he wants to get Job and find out who the mole is, because at this point he doesn't know who betrayed them.
Yeah, she establishes trust. Also, she's like, "Listen, I'll go to Kittredge myself. Tell him that, you weren't a part of it." And he's like, "No, you can't, because then they'll think that you're a part of this mole operation."
Yeah. So all of a sudden, Matthew, what happens? They get what?
They get the message.
They get a message back from Max.
In English.
In English,
So-
the preferred language.
Any thoughts you guys have on Max? And, she
Max was a
extend-
Well done
Well-
character.
Yeah, but I mean, let's not skip ahead. So he gets a message saying, "Hey, meet at this corner. Ask for a light." And then
Another POV
Another
shot.
POV shot of this beautiful blonde man who reminds me of one of the henchmen from Die Hard.
either that or he's from The Crow. He looks like somebody from The Crow.
So he's like, "Yeah, I got a light for you," and lights it, and then doesn't even go through the motion of lighting the cigarette. He just holds it there, which I think is fantastic. And then the car comes screaming up like, "Get the fuck in here!" He
Now,
opens the door.
What if I was wondering? What if he went up to someone, got a light from them, and then he got into this car, but it wasn't Max's car. It was just some random
Yeah.
kidnapper.
Like the price of admission. What price of admission? I just wanted to smoke.
And you got discount Jude Law with really interesting eyeliner.
Looks nothing
He
like
does,
Jude
like
Law.
a young Jude Law a little bit.
All right, so Ethan gets masks and brought to Max
Like a scarecrow mask.
for the meeting. And he's like, "Well, I can't see fucking Max. I'm here to meet Max." They're like, "Well, you can't see Max." He's like, "Well, I want to." And they're like, "Well, if she doesn't like what she sees, you're fucking dead." And he's like, "Well, I'm willing to take that risk." So he takes off the mask, and then lo and behold, Max is a woman,
Oh shit.
Maxine, and she's like, "Who the fuck are you? And why are you sending me these weird religious passages? I'm not religious. I'm an arms dealer."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, you're not." And then he reveals, obviously, he's not Job. He's not some fanatic. And so she's
I
like,
want $100,000.
yeah, I forgot. I should start there. I want $150,000 today." And she laughs him off. So, obviously, she laughs him off. He explains the situation. And he says, "Look, this list that you got, not real. Kittredge told me, bro, it's a fake. They used it in the mole hunt." Well, it doesn't tell her those details.
Yeah.
So she's like, "Well, how could I believe you? I'm going to test it." And then, Matthew, can you explain the technology of what was happening? What was raising their alarm? That they had said it's
So-
like 40 and 50. I'm like, what's 40 and 50?
I'm guessing that there was a bug on the disc that, like,
It was overheating?
or it, like, sent out a signal, like it played like a frequency of some kind. Or it was emitting a frequency of, like, the spinning disc, and I don't freaking.
And then, within 2 minutes, the frickin' CIA's there. I don't know why they're wearing these white jackets. I don't know if they were pretending to be a cleaning crew. I always wondered what the white jacket thing
Unless
was.
they're from like a conference
Or like
something.
they could have been a cleaning. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were trying to just pretend because they came up in that van like they're a cleaning crew. This lady points the gun at this old lady for no fucking reason.
And
She
she's
could
like-
have died.
she's like,
and
"Continue
then she
vacuuming."
continues vacuuming, which is the best part.
Well, I think they wanted her to continue vacuuming to disguise the sound of them
Yeah.
breaking in. I thought about that for a second. Why would they put this poor woman in danger? But
So obviously, they knew what was happening. They escaped,
Kittredge walks
Kittredge
in,
walks
looking
in.
fly as fuck,
and he's like, "See, we got some coppers."
and he bullies his older co-worker Barnes.
Yeah, Barnes is like, "Look, let's fucking post somebody at the airport." Kittredge is like, "Barnes, this is why you never got promoted, you dumbass."
Donnie, you're out of your.
But I mean, they should have done a buddy cop series, Barnes and Kittredge.
It's incredible how it took until 2023 or 2024. When did Dead Reckoning come out? 2023?
probably
3.
2023, yes. So it took them almost 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yes.
They could have probably used him in 2. But we'll table that for the 2. So.
So he's like, he's gone underground. And, what are we going to do? We're going to have to wait till he surfaces. And Barnes is like, well, how's that going to happen? He's like, pressure point, Barnes. You need to know where to make a man hurt. And so he's like, all right. And then you see Max and Ethan driving off, like, she's being very flirty with him, right, Matthew? Like,
Yeah,
you know, we've been in those situations with older women. You know, they
can't resist the cruise.
Nah, she couldn't resist. She's like,
He was on cruise control by that point.
Thank you, my boy. You know, and he's like, oh, you're welcome, Maxine. And then he's like, oh, she's like, oh, I love a warm blanket of anonymity. I always hate saying that word, and it's very off-putting. But anyway, and so she's like, all right,
everyone needs love.
Yeah, and she's like, all right, well, Noclis, obviously the deal's off. Get me to Noclis. He's like, all right, how much was you going to pay Job? And she's like, $6 million. It's like, $10 million. But she's like, I want the complete list. I'm like, all right, bro, we got a deal. So, you know, he goes back and he says, Claire, look, we've got a deal. All I got to do is go steal the Noclis now. Not a problem. What do we need to do this? Well, I need to get some disavowed agents. This is a risky proposition. John, I don't need to tell you that going on the disavowed list. First of all, how did he have access to the disavowed list? But it's not a, you know...
Is he still using Jim Phelps' login?
I don't know whose login he's using. It's kind of interesting how he just accesses a full list of disavowed agents, though. Like, it's nothing.
Maybe he just had a PDF in his email.
It's just on Google.
List of disavowed
agents. So obviously he looks at, you know, see it up, you know, him look it up. Names start appearing, and then all of a sudden we're on a train, and you see. John, is it the greatest supporting actor in movie history?
Give me 1 sec while I charge my computer. Ask Matthew that first, and then I'll come in.
So
Matthew,
this is another reason that John would fail at Mission Impossible. He does not charge his gadgets.
I thought we had enough to make it through. I don't know why none of the chargers are working. It's plugged in.
Well, I'll continue speaking. So obviously we've got Luther, and we've also got Jean Reno as Franz. They're like, all right, what's the play here? What do you need us for? We're disavowed. I don't know if you knew this. And he's like, all right, I want to go and steal something. And they're like, all right, what do you want to steal? And he's like, well, we're going to do this, we're going to go in this data frame.
Now,
all right, where's it located?
Before you go any further, let's go. Let me step back real quick, because we have to do, we can't skip over Luther talk real quick.
Okay.
So, what was the question you were asking me real quick?
Is Luther the greatest supporting actor in movie history?
It would be wrong to say that he's like a sidekick. He's pretty much like, what's a better word for sidekick?
I said supporting actor.
Supporting actor?
I didn't say sidekick.
Okay. Probably yes. At least for a series of this longevity. Like, when I see Luther appear in a movie, it makes me like incredibly like a happy person. He's just like a happy person to look at. He's got one of the best voices in the game, a very underappreciated voice. We didn't know he was the Arby's voice for years, but now it's like I enjoy hearing him saying that we got the meats, or we have the meats. But Luther is, besides Ethan Hunt, the most important character in the entire franchise.
Wow.
He is. Who else is more important than Luther?
Throughout the whole series, you're saying?
Yes, throughout the whole series, who is more important than
No,
Luther?
I think you have a
That's why, not jumping way ahead of myself, but that's why 4 doesn't work quite as well, because they wouldn't pay Ving Rhames the money he probably deserved, and that movie suffers for it, that he's a cameo at the end, but we will get to that when we get to 4. Okay. But the introduction of Luther is a great one. So go ahead.
Right, so they're obviously talking. He's like, all right, we're going to do this. Where's it located? Langley. And they're like, the fuck you mean Langley? Like CIA headquarters. And then they're like, bro, you're out of your element. And so he starts going into this, and he's like, this is what we got to do. And he's like, well, Luther, this is not the Luther I heard about. who I forget what the line is. What
he hacks like some ghost thing is what it was. Ghost NATO or something, I think.
Yeah.
Ghost Protocol.
And he's like, well, there was never any physical evidence to this.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Piece of work.
Yes.
And that's that line right there where you're like, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Because he's got that cockiness to him, but not like overconfident, like dislikable cockiness, kind of like this guy fucking knows what he's doing.
Yeah. But he's like, look, I'm going to need all this freaking, like, awesome hardware. And then he's like, all right, well, fucking Jean Renault.
Now, when he was listing off the hardware that he needed to Jean Renault, did you recognize any of what he was saying?
I don't think so. I think he was just making up a bunch of things. He was the Mount Everest. The Mount Everest of hacks.
He was was it like Phineas Freak?
Yeah.
And the Net Ranger.
Yeah. But then, obviously, we're like, all right, well, how are we going to do this? And Krieger's like, well, I need a lot of time to get this.
Krieger, played by Jean Renault,
Yes.
one of the actors of the 90s, Leon the Professional, and also one of the shining spots of Godzilla 98 with his Elvis impression to get through army barracks.
So Luther's excited, but then we do find out as they're talking that Claire is the one who recommended Jean Renault, which is a very key point as we move on in the movie. Luther's like, all right, I'll do this. You can get me the equipment, but I want to keep the equipment after the movie. I'm going to do some devious fucking hacking shit. Matthew, your thoughts?
He wanted AI well before it was well established. I mean, it's still not well established, but better than it was in 1996.
The seeds of the entity.
So then the best part of this is that Luther's like, all right, well, I gotta be hardwired in, and Ethan's like, well, it's a lot worse than you think, bro. So he starts going into the process of how this room is. First you got to go, it's voice activated to get in, then you got to enter a passcode. Then when you walk in, there's a retinal scanner, and then there's a double card pass, which I think, you have one key card, and the secretary who's in the room also has the other card who lets you in.
I guess it's just left in there, because I didn't see... Did she hand it to him?
No, I think you leave it... I guess you leave it... No.
I think she got up in the later scene. But then you walk in, and then...
He has it. He had it in his hand. I think he has it in his hand right there.
Yeah. So, obviously, there's different parts of this room that are crazy. It's sound sensitive to a certain
it's got the temperature sensitivity.
Temperature, which is set at 72 degrees. So, if you've got two people in there and it raises even like a single degree over what it's supposed to be, it's going to set off the alarm. Yeah. And then the vent, which is 30-some feet above the air, which is the air control for the room, it's got lasers. Okay.
Why did they think that anyone was going to enter that vent in the first place? Who knows? Maybe they should have put the lasers more in the room rather than just at the top of the vent.
Well, I think I think they have the temperature control. They've got the floor,
the pressure
thing.
Sensitivity.
Now, when they showed a thing with the drink where the condensation hits the ground, do you guys think that was like a hypothetical situation, or do you think that really happened to that guy?
Like he
and the
should
whole
have
building
been...
shut down, and he got like a pay cut.
Like he should have been fired on the spot for that.
What are you doing, taking your fucking Bahama Breeze bullshit into the fucking vault?
Like I would have been fired immediately.
All right, so they're going through it, and they're like, "This is fucking difficult. I don't know how we're gonna do this." All right, well, how are we gonna do this? And then all of a sudden, we see fire trucks. Well, they're gonna pose as firefighters, and Luther's gonna hack in, thinking that all these alarms are going off, and that there's a fire in the building. So the team gets in there. They run up, and they're like, "We need to access room 21." And they're like, "There's no fucking fire in room 21, bro. You can't go in there if there's not an alarm." And then Luther's
unlike
like,
Jack.
Yeah, Luther's like, well, all right, well, I know how to fucking hack, unlike the previous guy that was there. Got his eye stabbed out by an elevator. He's like, all right, we need an alarm in 21. You got an alarm in 21. And all of a sudden, they're like, all right, fine. We can go up.
Now, I like in this scene also when they knock out the security guard, Ethan stops Krieger, I think is Jean Renault's name, from killing someone, and he's like, no body count, and Jean Renault's like, we'll see.
Yes.
So that's already your tip off after you watch the whole movie. It's like, yeah, he was bad from the start, even though, yeah, that is kind of a shady thing to do, and that's probably why he was disavowed. But
So Claire gets out of her firefighter's costume as well. That's why the guard, was like questioning why there was only 2 of them. And she's the one who's going to go poison our poor guy who's
Great
manning the room.
a great
And it's going to cause him to have some bowel issues that are unfortunate for a man of his position. But,
he seems like a lovely guy.
he doesn't
Doesn't seem like he's
He
just
just
reading
wanted his
pa-
coffee.
reading the Washington Post pre Jeff Bezos.
So-
And it was talking about intruders being shot. I'm curious if it was a reference to something that happened in the movie. But
So Krieger and Ethan start climbing up the ducts, and they got these little like sticky pad things, which we see a couple times. But they start going through, and they're like, all right, trying to make their way. And Krieger's following him. And obviously, Krieger, you can tell, is a little bit more lunky than Ethan. He's not used to this type of work.
Yeah, I did notice. I'm glad I was the only one to notice the difference in the crawls.
Yeah, so not as adept. Claire gets the tracker on our guy who's going to have the throat problems, and then our buddy notices him on the tracker. So finally, we get to the point where, all right, we got to get into this room. So
Now, what did the thing mean with when they were doing the 1, 2, like why was
they're trying to
testing
figure
the
out
decibel level.
okay?
yeah, how loud could they talk or make sound before it would set off the theater.
Right.
So toast. Yes, toast was what activated it essentially. So they use this really cool thing, this mirror thing, to turn off or basically channel the laser into a different field of area, right? So that way the laser wasn't a problem.
Now, what's cool about the scene also is before he goes down, he still turns into, because even in the beginning, you could tell Ethan's a bit like, he's a hotshot kind of guy, like a cocky kind of guy. Before he goes down, it's like, Mount Everest, man, we're gonna do this. Like, I wonder if it's because he's actually cocky, or he's just like, he's so freaking nervous that he has to pump himself up and pump everybody else up around him before he's gonna do this freaking scene.
I think he was doing it for Luther, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously he starts getting lowered into the room. This is probably the most famous scene in the movie, is this scene.
Did
There's
they have contacts back then? I feel like he should have been wearing contacts.
Yeah, my glasses 100% would have fallen off in a vertical drop.
What I like in this when I listened to some of that the Light Diffuse podcast, we were saying like, do we know that it doesn't make sense that the sweat went on the front of the glasses? Yes. Does it look cool? Yes.
Yes.
But it's like I don't think it's because when he did the flippity thing around, it's very possible for a piece of sweat to somehow hit the front of the glasses. You don't know.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes it comes from the eyebrows.
there are so many things that we could talk about with this scene. I think one of the main things that makes this scene work is the lack of score. Complete.
Well, I think
silence.
they talk about that as
Yeah.
the silence. Yes.
The silence if it, like, not saying that the scene wouldn't have worked if it had like a little bit of like a like jangly, whatever the hell kind of things. But you could feel like a pin's gonna drop.
Yeah. Well, so there's several bits of tension. First is when the guy comes back in the room and Ethan has to get raised again and is basically, maybe 10 feet, elevated 10 feet above him, waiting hopefully for this guy to leave. Obviously, he pops a pill and you're like, oh my God, how did he not raise his eyes to see Ethan? And then, he puts in his key card, starts doing work, starts pretending to work at least. And, there's also a moment where he starts like feeling agitated, coughing a little bit, and you're like, oh my God, he's going to look up. He's going to look up to give that
Another
great
great
angle.
shot.
Yes,
Yep.
where it looks like he's going to look up for just a millisecond, and then, no, he doesn't look up. He barfs in the can.
It's just but that's something, another De Palma trademark. I'm not sure if that counted as a split diopter, where you see two planes, one guy in front, one in the back, both in focus, split diopter shot. It's a standard De Palma trademark, but he uses it very well in this.
Matthew also, I noticed when we were viewing this, again, was keeping track of the clock on the wall and said that it seemed to be movie accurate. Is that correct, Matthew?
Yeah, it continues forward. It's there. You don't see like 9:53 back to 9:51 and like some random times. It seems to actually be counting forward. So they good attention to detail.
So obviously
On
the guy
that.
starts barfing. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Did Tom? So you listened to more of the podcast. So Tom Cruise, he actually did the wire stunt and
He
everything.
did the wire stunt, yes.
But what was the thing with the shoes?
He kept hitting his head on the floor.
Oh,
And so he put coins, I believe in some sort of coins, I don't remember the exact term, but in his shoes. And that raised the lower half of his body and kept him in a more balanced state for the stunt. It was what made him able to do it. Otherwise, he just wasn't balanced and he kept hitting his head on the floor. So,
now it's crazy. Like you have, the stunts in that, and like you have the big train sequence at the end of the movie and stuff like that. But this is still the defining stunt in the series, at least to me.
in the whole series.
I think so, because what's great about this movie is that, and we do love the later Mission Impossible. Like, don't get me wrong, like I love them, but I like with the first one, it's mainly the tension of it more so than the action
Yeah,
of it.
it's a true spy movie.
It's an espionage, like trying to figure out these weird, out of the box ways to get what they need to get.
Now, I guess the one thing is we did see what's his name take his key card with him to get out. Do they not need a key card
To access the
to
computer.
computer?
It seemed like maybe he left it. He didn't close it up when he left.
He
maybe?
took a key card with him, but maybe that was
Yeah.
the get out of room key card, not the access to computer key card.
I'm honestly not sure, but obviously we see Ethan gets access to the files. Luther helps him with the password, and he starts downloading the knock list. When Luther realizes what he's downloading, he goes like, his face is like, "Oh my god!"
And then we have the classic scene with another split diopter of Jean Reno and Sir Mr. Rat.
Yes. While our CIA agent is struggling to get out of the bathroom, he keeps having to run back to the stall. So Ethan's still there. You see him with 2 discs. This kind of foreshadows a later scene. I didn't realize what the purpose was of the 2 discs. Probably earlier viewings of this movie when I was a kid. So he puts the disc in, starts downloading the information to the disc. He's trying to keep an eye on the decibel meter. All of a sudden, it starts getting a little bit louder because Jean Reno sees this fucking rat going down the ducts, and he's like, crap. I don't know if he's scared of rats. I don't know what his situation is. He's French, so they don't look too kindly on fucking rats. And all of a sudden, he's getting closer. He's getting closer. The fucking knock list gets downloaded, and then all of a sudden, Jean Reno loses the fucking grip, and Ethan goes fucking flying down to the floor.
With the iconic shot.
Yes. And then he is fucking literally inches sprawled, arms waving, his feet raised, so you can kind of tell how he had the coins.
It's one of those where it's, everybody has like those movies they want, like, God, I wish I was in like a movie theater to watch this when it came out. That scene would be the one where I'd be like, I love to be in a packed audience to see what their first reactions were to that.
So Ethan's hanging above there. They're worried about not only the decibel number, but the humidity, temperature in that room. He's hanging on, and he's like, oh crap, now there's a fucking, eye drop or sweat coming down my glasses. What the hell am I going to do? This
Now, see,
temperature's
it
going
could
up.
have come from the eyebrow and got onto the top rim of his glasses. That does happen to me.
Yeah. So
The sweat can happen.
Yeah.
yeah. So the tension is rising, and you're like, Luther's looking at it like, what the fuck, man? We are totally fucked. All of a sudden, you see Jean Reno start to pull up Ethan after the sweat drop gets caught by him. Mm-hmm. Thank God.
But let's not forget, at this point, the way he catches the sweat, it's definitely...
Not possible. Not possible at that angle to have done that.
It looks very similar to the self-shooting incident.
But then our man from the CIA starts coming in, so he's like, you guys got to fucking, get him up. And then Jean Reno starts lifting him up. and all you see is the dead rat in the background. And I want to know, was it a punch? Did he knife the rat? Because he's known as a knife artist. So I'm assuming he stabbed him.
It had to have been a quick because his hands were off the rope, so Ethan was falling. So he had to do that in a swift motion.
He took care of that rat.
Did he like back slap the rat?
Yeah. So now they're
Did he hit it with his ring hand?
Yeah. So Ethan's trying to get fucking equipment off there. He's like, "Get me the fuck out of here, toast." And then all of a sudden he's going through the vent. Now this scene, I need you to pause this, Matthew. So Jean Reno goes up to talk to him, right? And then he drops the knife. So Mission Impossible Red, I brought this up to you, John, months ago, has claimed that they think he was going to kill Ethan there.
Yeah, no, watching it recently, when he grabbed the thing, he's like, merci. I thought that's just like,
Matthew,
he's taking it.
Watch this scene. Do you think he's going to stab Ethan?
I don't know. Well, let's see. So he's getting
He's
brought
flying
up.
through the air, right?
Toasty.
He's going up there, and he comes up, and then look, he like pulls his knife.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why? Yeah. Now some people are like, well, he used a knife to kill the rat. That's why he had
But there's
the
no
knife.
blood on the knife.
There is no blood on the knife.
So he couldn't have killed the rat.
Was he going to attempt to kill Ethan there? And how would he have gotten away with it?
Well, because he would have had
He would have
had
left
the
the body
list
there.
and done what they did, do the smoked thing.
And think about it,
Somehow.
Ethan had a second disc on him. Not that
And
he
also-
knew, but
Since Claire was in on it already, Claire hired him for the exact reasons. So they could have made up any bullshit reason.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though. Luther would have seen it on the camera.
Yeah. So it's very. I don't think that was the intent of the movie, but I like the potential that was gonna happen. So our man walks in and he's like, "Oh fuck."
He sees the knife. Which
Sees the knife.
is coming back in 8 along
Yes.
with him. So I'm very excited to see where the knife's coming from.
And then he sees that the fucking knock list was downloaded, and he's like, "Fuck, this is probably my worst day at fucking CIA headquarters. I've had one of these days, multiple of these days, and it's not good. It's not fun."
now look, there's Jim Phelps' his covert name. It was
What a poll.
Top Hat.
Huh? I never noticed that. How did you even?
No,
notice
that's
that?
Jim Phillips.
Oh, Jim Phillips.
Okay, let's look
very-
let's
very-
look at these code names. We got Wood Chip, Framer, Continent, Deep Sea, Scarecrow, Zenith, Tiger. Imagine like you have to go contact Deep Sea and Uptown.
I want to be the guy his real name is Stan Stain.
Or
Codename Pluto.
or Rich Reed.
I wonder if these were
Brian
people who
Dent.
worked on the
Yeah.
movie.
That it had to be. They like
Fuad
doing this.
Fawaz.
Now, the one thing that I'm curious about was in the beginning, they showed that this knock list is in this just random hall, protected by just a fingerprint, and meanwhile, to get the true knock list, you have to go through 50 forms of identification. So this guy clearly didn't know what he was getting into to steal that initial knock list.
Yeah, it seems like Jim Phelps was a little bit of a dumbass.
Yes.
But also, it seemed like once, like I know, like you have to do all this bullshit to get into the vault, but it seems like he accessed the files really easily. I feel like that's like when he
Well,
got.
I mean, they can only put so many barriers.
I know,
to
but
work in a
still,
movie.
Like he should have been able
these
to
are
have
the
that-
code
and, like,
names of their agents.
Like if they had him, like, well, they talked about that in the Fuse, like. They had the CIA consultants, and they're like, "All right, how would they do this in the CIA?" They're like, "Oh, they just have a room, with cameras watching it." And like they're like, "All right, that's boring." And then they created all these barriers to get into the room. So there's only so much reality you can bring to it.
yeah.
But so he gets out, and then obviously the guy's like, "Oh fuck."
And it looks like there's also several duplicates too. There's show Jim Phillips several times, Stan Stain several times, so
Yeah.
they had some fun.
So obviously Kittredge finds out, and he's like, "Barnes, this doesn't go past you and I." And then he's like, "I want that man on a plane to fucking Alaska. This ship is fucking shit to him." So they escape. Now, I wrote down a question while I was watching this live. Say Tom Cruise hits the floor, or the humidity sensor goes off, or whatever, and Claire, Jean Reno, and Ethan get caught. Does Luther just drive the fire truck away? What's his escape plan?
Something interesting about the fire truck scene also that hints is that when you're at the fire truck scene, when it starts, Claire is like glaring at Jean Reno. And I noticed that the last two times I watched it, I'm like, okay, that's an even clearer picture that she knew that they were in cahoots. Either that or that theory brought up that he was supposed to kill him. It's like, you fucker. But he was supposed to be dead. Now we're all in this fire truck on our silly ass.
He's like,
I'm squeezed behind.
I love how he steers
how he
the
drives,
fire
and he's like, aha, you see, I did it. Yeah. But it's like, and she's squeezed in between Luther and Tom Cruise.
Yeah, like look at like him. I want like a gif of him steering the fire truck.
I don't think
with
Jean
that
Reno
smile.
is appreciated enough for his performance in this movie.
Yeah,
but just a great sequence. A lot like it set the bar that you could say whether or not if they've crossed it or not yet.
Yeah, and I think Luther was hoping that him and Claire were gonna have some fun later with the arms around her back.
That's okay. She is so happy to get back to John Voight.
So you see Jean Reno, like, with his stupid ass grin. Luther's, like, all serious. Claire's looking at Ethan, like, why are you alive? And Ethan's looking straight ahead, like, I fucking got the knock list.
And then we got the split diopter again of Kittredge talking to Barnes while you have William, what's his name? Something, the CIA guy in the back. No, he didn't need to pull that trick out. He could have just done this season, but he's like, fuck it, I'm Brian De Palma, I'm cool. We're doing a split diopter.
Alright, so knock list has been stolen. Kittredge is going to hide it from the rest of the CIA. Tells you about some of his intentions and his motives. And we get to an important scene in the movie.
Now, this scene I love now, especially after having seen Dead Reckoning. You could tell that McQuarrie was a big fan of the first one because he brought back the Ethan Hunt magic act, which you'll explain what happens in the scene. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Yep. So, obviously, Jean Reno is like, all right, are you contacting the buyer? And Ethan just starts, like, basically just ignores him. He calls him out, like, 8 times. And
he could have just said, like, give me a minute.
He was kind of being a dick. Let's be honest. Ethan Hunt was being a dick. And, not answering him for some reason. And he's like, well, you don't have the power in this situation. And he's like, I've got the fucking knock list. And Ethan's like, what knock list? And he pulls out the knock list and starts doing this little, sleight of hand magic tricks. Does, one with Claire where he's like, oh, where is it? Oh, Claire, it's up your shirt. He's like, I know you were, still married to Jim. I met her, 2 days ago.
Here we go, Jim.
And then he goes up to Jean Reno and is like, I know what you're thinking, Krieger, and taps the thing on his head, which I don't know how Krieger didn't just take his knife and stab Ethan in the fucking.
And I'm just so happy that in 7 they brought back Ethan just having these sleight of hand magic tricks. Because they didn't do it in the other ones. It's cool that they brought back his little bag of tricks and his cockiness, that he could like, fuck you, I'm the most skilled guy in the room.
So he does it so many times that it throws Krieger off. And he says, like, look, you think I'd actually let you have the actual knock list? And Krieger's like, well, better not play that shit with my money. And throws his disc in the pail. And that actually winds up being the actual knock list, which is insane. But the important part of this scene is Ethan picks up the book that Krieger had knocked over and notices in the imprint of the front cover that it was placed by the Gideons in the Drake Hotel, Chicago, which Jim Phelps had referenced earlier in the setup scene for the initial initial
Mission.
that he had stayed at the Drake Hotel, and they were all joking around with him that he was, had
Now-
expense account and 24-hour room service, and that's the moment where Ethan realizes Jim Phelps was the mole.
Do you think that it's more of he had the suspicion, or he knew exactly that he was the mole?
No, he noticed right as soon as he saw that, he knew.
You think
Because
that,
then he knew that Jim had taken the book and then was using the Bible references.
Okay, I think I'm getting confused because that he was a lot. So do you think he knew that he faked his death?
No, I don't think he knew anything until that very moment.
Interesting. Now, my favorite little part of this scene is the discussion he has with Luther about the list, and he trusts Luther with the actual knock list, which again proves not my theory, but my point that as much as Mission Impossible is about Ethan Hunt, it's also about Luther and the trust and the bond that they have. And I love the little moment where he gets the disc, and right before it cuts to the other scene, and he's trying to do the magic trick himself and just doesn't do it. So I love those little moments.
Yeah. So obviously we've reached a pivotal point of the movie. So now Ethan has realized that his mentor was the bad guy, and now he's going to have to figure out what's going on. But before he can do so, Claire calls him into the bedroom. And it's like, you got to see this on TV. And, oh, God, Mrs. Hunt and his uncle have been arrested.
On the family farm.
On the family farm. Now, I always wondered why they never thought, to ever bring back the familial element into it. About, he has surviving family. Because it's not like Bond where they're orphans and, they cut off all family communication, really, that you kind of learn about in Skyfall and everything.
Yeah, I think it would have been overplayed if they went that car. They kind of do it with the wife. The wife becomes
Yeah, that's right.
that kind of surrogate.
Yeah.
I would say.
And then they said in 3, I think, and Ethan lost his parents, too. So either his mother died before 3, or he just doesn't tell. He keeps that part of his life a secret.
Yeah.
But it's, it's interesting.
So obviously, they fucked with his parent or his family so hard that they made international news in London, being arrested as some huge drug ring.
Now I find so you think that when we get to the scene where the next scene is where he calls Kittredge and he's like, "See, you met the folks, a nice touch, bringing my mother in handcuffs."
Yeah.
And they have that whole talk about him being in London and everything. When he sees Phelps, so you don't think that's genuine shock that it's Phelps and that he's alive? Do you think he's faking it? Because that'd be an interesting read.
I think there's an element of shock that Phelps
approached
him.
But you think as soon as he saw that Bible, he knew the whole thing?
Yeah, because Phelps asks him later in the train, after London, and he says before.
That's right. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so obviously he talks to Kittredge, is like, you're a dick, and Kittredge is trying to keep him on the phone while getting annoyed at Barnes interrupting him. And, they got 25 seconds to go. He's saying, hey, look, we'll play you down, just come in, blah, blah, blah. And then we basically see Raphael from Ninja Turtles 1. Fucking Jim Phelps is wearing the same costume that Raphael wore to watch the goddamn movies in the Turtles 1 when he fought Casey Jones.
Jose Canseco back? Yeah. Please tell me to spend money on this.
Yeah. So, obviously, Ethan Hunt, per movie logic, knows when to cut off it, so he doesn't give him the exact location.
Because he was looking at the clock.
Know that it's in, that he's in London because he wanted to know that. And then as soon as he hangs up, the ghost of Christmas Past, Jim Phelps, turns around from the other booth and is like, ugh.
A great musical sting on that. It makes I know it's really dramatic, but it's also very funny. That just you're getting.
But it's like, you're a hard man to catch up with. Just a fake cough. I love it. It's like, oh, Jim, you're alive. And then we see them sit down.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
Have you seen Claire?
And then you see Jim just starting the lies right away. Oh, I must have just missed you at the safe
Now,
house.
It sucks that, like, I keep using the meme of, like, oh no, the worst person in the world said something right. Like, as much as we have our feelings about Jon Voight as, like, the person that he is, he brings his A game to the movie.
Jon Voight is a very, very entertaining actor.
Yes.
Very
And
good.
it's like, he's so, like, you see him in, like, he's perfect in the role that he is in this movie. Like, all right, he's, like, the team leader. He's got the voice for it. He's got the look for it, like the old Hollywood TV show kind of look.
He is arguably one of the best villains, and obviously, once we complete this series, we'll have to rank the villains. But he is.
He's probably your number one. I
it's-
can't imagine anyone else taking that spot.
It's
Possibly Hoffman, possibly
it's
my
no-
favorite and villain in the whole world, Mr. Entity.
Yeah, we may have to see how the entity plays
We
out.
gotta
There's still
see
one
what the
more.
entity does in the second part. But the fact that the entity threw a fucking party is just. I can't express to you how much I love the entity.
Now, I just imagine Jim Phelps working with the entity. How would that work out?
He talks like sexually about the entity. I knew that it would work when you tasted the goods.
And then entity,
Fucking entity, and fucking music starts going on. All right, but it's a really this is probably my second favorite scene in the movie. So Jim and Ethan are talking, and Ethan's trying to figure out what happened that night, right? And he starts talking about, hey, well, how did or Jim basically says, I saw who the mole was. It was Kittredge. And I
Coulda
mean,
worked.
If it could have worked if he didn't, the freaking Gideons didn't fuck it up because Kittredge was there, right?
We didn't see the Bible. It's like, yep, this character is the perfect ploy.
Could have been Kittredge. But you got Ethan there staring at him. He's like, oh, it's Kittredge, really? And he knows he's fucking lying out of his fucking teeth. But then Ethan does this whole thing, and his face is great during this whole scene where he's trying to pretend like, oh my
Now,
god.
We had I had a different name for this Tom Cruise thing, but what was the would you sit next to Tom Cruise on the train? That's what you called it, Matthew?
Yes.
So I have this thing with Tom Cruise where in certain Mission Impossible movies, like he's like, all right, I could trust that guy. He seems like a nice guy. There's other parts of the movie where it's like the absolute scariest person in the world. I don't want to go near him. This movie, Tom Cruise with the slight stubble on his chin, I would trust him.
It's boyish charm.
He
Tom
boyish
Cruise.
charm. He looks like he's got to be a lot of fun.
Meanwhile, Jon Voight eating, is it a single peanut? I don't know what it is.
Also,
but
he
the
is-
lie, like that is one of the worst. I just got away with a lie. Let me eat
No,
a single peanut.
Him and
And then
Kittredge
take
both.
a drink after,
Yes.
right?
Him
Yes.
and Kittredge does the thing where he's like, I can't look. What do you mean? And then he's like, oh.
Like, look at that face. He is clearly lying. So, we get, Jon Voight being great at this. And then Cruise starts to go through it. And he's drinking the water. He's like, all right. He was at the embassy. And first he took Jack out at the elevator. And as he's saying things that lead you to believe that he's telling a story to Phelps, you see what's really in his mind and what happened. It shows him on the
Great.
computer killing Jack.
Just a great.
It shows him shooting himself, which should have been super obvious.
Again,
And then he goes,
the
"Ah!"
score is going so hard and make it dramatic. But seeing
Yes.
Jon Voight have to throw away the gloves, put on the fake blood, and then toss himself over the bridge.
So, Matthew, here's
Oh wait,
the blood.
he squeezed a pack.
It
of
was
blood.
like a big pack, and it's realistic looking blood. He did a really good job. And then he does the whole, let me look down at my hands at this blood.
Can I give me the thing? I need to see. Was he looking up the whole time?
Yes.
He was. Wow.
'Cause
Very
he's got the
expertly
glasses.
shot.
He's
Yeah.
got the glasses.
And then, so he squeezes the blood, throws it all over, and then he's like, all right, now I'll look down. And that's what obviously Ethan sees through the lens is, him, Ethan. And then he does his tumble, which is, it's really, honestly...
Now, I love, they knew they got gold the first time that they showed it twice.
I have to take a photo of John Voight tumbling to his demise or fake demise, because it's just one of my favorite things in cinema.
Now, what's interesting about this scene also is, do you think he didn't want to believe that Claire was a part of it?
Well, that's the thing. He didn't know if Claire was bad.
Now, do you think he didn't know, or he didn't want to believe?
No, I think it was more he didn't want to believe. So he's going through it. He realizes, oh fuck, it was probably Jean Renault with the knife that killed my girl Sarah, and he's just going through and trying to figure out what happened to each of the team members and how it happened, decipher what happened, and then he's like, well, how did he do Hannah? That doesn't make sense. And then he pictures it in his mind. It's Claire using some sort of device to trigger the car exploding. But then he says, no, he could have done that himself. Because I think what you are saying, he didn't want to believe it was Claire. I think he wasn't 100% sure because she was laying it on thick. So obviously, he thinks that. He's like, no, he could have done Hannah himself. And then there's that image, and then obviously you see that relief on Phelps's face. His face drops, which is great because John Voight does a really good job selling it. And you see Phelps getting out, and then he does, triggers it, and Hannah dies like 5 times in this movie with all the fucking reshoots of her death.
Now, do you think Phelps at this point in the movie, because you know how he said like the taste of goods thing at the end, do you think Phelps was planning to kill her from like this point on, or do you think that was
I don't
more
know.
so?
I've never thought about
Because you were saying the relief in his face about like how could he have done the two things? Now could have been like like he was relieved that he didn't suspect Claire because he wants to get away with Claire, or it's interesting.
I think that it's a good question. I never really thought of the motivation of Phelps.
Yeah, like do you does Phelps really want Claire involved, or I don't know, because Claire had to.
I don't think he planned on killing her.
Yeah, until
But
after
he got annoyed with her. Yeah,
Claire did the whole romantic thing with Ethan.
Yeah, so obviously he finishes his speech there, and the best part of the dialogue is the why Jim why, and it's meant Jim Phelps takes it as why would Kittredge do this. But I think it's Ethan saying, why, Jim, why? Mm-hmm. Why would you do this? Without him telling him that, which I think is really nice dialogue.
Now, tell me if I'm dumb here at this. So, is Phelps' main motivation the money, or does he really believe his list, the notion of having the list out in the open, ending the Cold War espionage?
Because of where things have gone with the IMF, and how things are different, and they just turns bad. I don't know. They don't really dive too heavily into his motivations.
Yeah,
but
as you said, it's controversial because Jim Phelps was the main character of the TV show, and to turn him bad.
So after that finishes up, he says, look, you can't, Claire can't know I'm alive, which I think, if he had any shred of credibility left, he was screwed there. But that may have led some credence to help Ethan think that maybe Claire wasn't bad, I think. So Ethan goes back, he messages his Max and says, hey, look, here's some religious passages again.
Now, what's interesting is before he messaged Max at Job 3:14, but now he's doing Job 3:15.
What a catch.
Which I understand they're trying to say he's sending a different verse, but does Max own every Job sub message ID?
And does this go to the whole discussion group? Like, how many people from this Job discussion group are going to show up
I just
on
love
the TGV?
that there's just a discussion group just for Job. Like, they're like, hey, listen, can we discuss the book of Matthew? Fuck you, get out of here. This is a Job club.
And then, but I what the thing I love is too, the message is from Job, and it says, bring our mutual friend Job. Like, the people in
Now-
this discussion group are like, what happened?
I love also, like, back then, it's like, just someone's trying to look for a job. It's like, the book of Job. Like, oh, fuck yes. I can look up and he's like, verses. Like, I just want to see if I can work at a Target.
Yeah. So, obviously, he sets up the meeting, and, he's like, all right, this is going to set the final act. But before that, Claire's, he goes into the room, and Claire's sitting in a little, what do you want to call it, sleeping bag or whatever.
Yeah.
And she reaches out to him and then does that weird, cuddle of his hand and starts kissing his hand.
Yeah, now,
I think this alludes to, hey, they had sex, obviously.
Now, do you think this was more manipulation by Claire, or do you think Claire was starting to...
100%.
You think it was
Yeah,
just
to
full-on
try to throw him
manipulation?
off.
Yes.
Okay.
So we see a helicopter land. Kittredge comes out, and he has a message from Ethan saying, hey, you got to be on this train. The guy's like, it's going to take 25 minutes to get there. He's like, you got 10! And he's got to somehow to find the laws of physics to get Kittredge and Barnes on this train in time. And this obviously becomes one of several famous train scenes in the Mission Impossible series.
It's crazy, again, seeing Dead Reckoning, seeing how much Dead Reckoning calls back to the first one. Mm-hmm. Ends with the train sequence, has another, the daughter of Max on the train in the new one.
Yeah. So Max is on the train, and Ethan calls her, and she's like, this wasn't part of the plan. He's like, sorry, circumstances. Look under your seat. There's the list. She starts to look at it, and she's very happy. And she's like, all right, this is where you can find the money. The code is 314, which is ironic. And then she's like, what about Job? She's like, well, he'll meet you there. And then we see Luther.
Got a question. So, when she's downloading this list, why couldn't Luther just hack the disk and put some fake names in there? They gave her the legit list.
They couldn't have given her the other fake. They couldn't have just given her another fake list.
Oh, no.
I feel like he could have created a copy.
That's a good question, Matthew.
He's master hacker. He's better than Jack.
And a freaking paper bag's better than Jack.
Poor Jack.
I mean, I love Emilio, but...
All right, so she authenticates it and is like, all right, you're good. And then Luther starts his trickery with his phone where he's using some signal to jam so that they can't transmit the data to wherever they're trying to transmit
Yeah,
it.
and I didn't notice until you told me on this watch that everybody's phones were jammed as they were walking through.
Yeah.
I didn't notice
So
that.
he's jamming them, but unfortunately he sees Kittredge and Barnes. He's like, fuck, I'm disavowed. I'm not supposed to be here. And he's like, I got to get out of here. Leaves the phone. And then this dumbass attendant's like, sir, you forgot your phone. And, kind of blows Luther's cover. The big blonde, scary looking dude, with gentle eyes is like, all right, I'm going to follow Luther. Kittredge sees this all happening. He's like, I'm following everybody. They want to follow Claire. Everybody just follows everybody on the train for 5 minutes. Luther barricades himself in a bathroom, and Barnes is trying to break in. But it leads to the seminal scene where Max calls Phelps and betrays Ethan and says he's coming to the carriage, and be prepared. Then we see Claire walk into the carriage, and she starts talking to Phelps, saying, essentially, help me out with the dialogue on that one, John. It's like, we've got the money.
Yeah, do we really have to kill Ethan? It was something like that. She has her doubts about killing Ethan.
Yes. We don't need to
Because
do this.
she cares about him, which I think is a really cool thing. It's like she's doing this despicable thing, but she still cares about him.
But she says Kittredge is here. He's going to take the blame. We don't have to do anything else. Let's just get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Let's get the money and get the hell out of here. Ethan's right behind me, right? But what she doesn't, and she's questioning, look, is it a good idea to kill him? This is probably not a good idea. And he's just sitting there being quiet, which is not, typical of Jim Phelps. And unfortunately, she's going to realize in 5 seconds that this isn't Jim Phelps, John, is it?
No, it's not Jim Phelps. It's John Voight. No, it is Mr. Ethan Hunt. And what sets the standard for mask reveals going forward, they do away with the realistic kind of prosthetic kind of way, and it's just the actor. Then they pull the mask off.
And it looks great.
Yeah,
I
still
mean,
does.
1996. This looks
Yep.
great.
Now, and as much as I said I like the prosthetic mask, as we see throughout the rest of the series, when you do a good mask reveal or a good mask scene, it elevates the movie.
Yeah. So, Ethan's like, I'm very sorry to hear you, hear that, Claire, but, and she's like, oh, God, well, Ethan. And Jim's like, yes, and he comes storming out like a raptor from the cage. Reminds me of Jurassic Park. Like, he's like, yes, you knew about Jim? No. Of course. And then he's like, all right, and this is the pivotal scene. Well, when, Jim's like, when did you know? He's like, before or after?
Now, I have an interesting thing about this. It could be me talking out of my ass, but I try to notice these things. It's how each person in this scene is lit. You see Phelps, he's kind of lit overhead. He's got like these raccoon, like dark eyes. He's kind of like lit with like heavy shadow. You could tell he's the bad guy. Uh-huh. You see Ethan, he's lit in like very classical. His eyes are very clear. His face is very soft. Like he's the good guy. He has, he's, a faithful kind of guy. Then you go to Claire, and she's kind of got like a mix where like her eyes are full on clear and nice, but she's also clouded in the shadow, and it kind of looks like her loyalties are kind of mixed. Now this could be just me talking out of my ass, and probably maybe something that's not intended, but something when I see this scene, it's like they're telling you the loyalties and the types of people they are just through the simple, subtle lighting choices they make. I don't know if it's intentional. But if it was intentional, bravo. If it wasn't intentional, it still works. Mm-hmm. But, that's just something I noticed.
So we get 2 more great lines. Obviously, we find out that Ethan went through this whole charade because he didn't know Claire was bad. And obviously, this was his way of finding out. But then Jim Phelps, talks about, Claire's confidence in trying to trick Ethan. And, basically gives the classic line of having tasted the goods about his own wife. Which is just like, God, that line. Like, who wrote that line? And then, Matthew and I, our favorite line growing up, where he tells Claire to get the money, and she goes, Ethan, the money.
I've heard this line for over 20 years of my life.
Line from that movie.
I heard this line before I saw the movie. I never knew what it was. All I just heard is you and Matthew, whenever you walk around, you had to give each other like $5 or something for something. You're just like, they just go, Ethan, the money.
The money.
And it's just, I'm like, what is the C? Why do they keep saying, why is this so important to them?
And then also, what is this denomination of money? He hands her like these.
Oh yeah, well he said it was like certified treasury or something.
I guess I didn't.
And they have to
he talks to Max about that.
Now they have to cut it themselves. It looks like, right?
He hands these like sheets over, like here's a bunch of checks.
How are they gonna cut that with like an exact, like scissors and X-Acto blade?
John, I don't know really the
like how much can a dollar be cut before it's unacceptable?
Well, they're checks, I think. I guess they're certified. Like, do they go to?
But that
is
an interesting question. Like how much can a dollar or something be fucked up before they're like, we can't accept this currency? Because imagine if it were me having to be like, okay, you are the money cutter guy.
Oh, I said it's not money though; they're checks. I think.
Oh, they're No, I don't
certified bonds or something.
I forget what they are. It's not a. This is maybe.
It's not like a dollar bill. Yeah. Let's put it that way.
But obviously, she gets the money. She's like, all 20 million are there, despite not doing any check of it.
It feels like this amount.
This feels about 20 million. And then Ethan's like, well, one more thing, Jim. He's like, you're on candid camera, and pulls out, Jim lets him, another slippage of an IMF agent just letting somebody pull something out of a pocket and not really giving credence to what they were doing. He pulls out the eyeglasses, puts them on, and he's like,
the glasses were
not the only one that's seen you, Jim.
The MVP gadget of this movie was the glasses.
Yeah. So obviously Jim Phelps makes this great face, and
dramatic
then you
zooms.
see Kittredge with his little watch monitor says, "Good morning, Mr. Phelps," and John Voight like freaks out with his eyes, and he's like, "You fucking bastard!"
Great close-ups in
Yes.
this movie.
Yeah, so he's pissed off. Tom Cruise does the great throw of glasses at his chest to piss him off a little bit. Throws the glasses down. He's like, "Don't, Jim, don't shoot him." And I don't know why she's still like, "Don't shoot him." And then he shoots Claire, and then literally beats the crap out of Tom Cruise. Like, I thought his back was broken like Bane from these shots that he took to the back. And he gets up in like 3 seconds somehow. I thought he would be laying on the ground. That's why Phelps left him like that. Like, he was dead. He gets up like nothing. He's like, "Oh, Claire, you're dead."
Oops.
Oops. And he's like, "Crap." He sees the ladder going up to the roof. He's like, "All right, well, I gotta, this is gonna end somewhere. I gotta go face Jim Phelps from one last time." So
She was still towards the end, being like, "Are you sure you have to kill him?"
Yeah. So he's angry, climbs up the ladder, and much unlike the scene in Dead Reckoning, this is more of a high speed train, and the wind resistance is insane, and
So, how do we feel about the action scene on the train? I'm curious.
for its time, it's a very good scene, and it still holds up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they try to play it very realistic.
What was it they said? It was the same technology they used in the pod racing, right?
Yes, something kind of like that.
Yes.
Done by ILM.
Yes.
And I'm glad he threw off his tie and his jacket, because that would.
Well, I don't think he threw off the jacket on purpose. I think it just came.
No, I know, but like that would have bothered me if he just dealt with it.
Yeah.
But
So Jean Reno's chasing him in the helicopter. Jean Reno.
Jean.
I don't know. Whatever.
Frenchman.
Jean Reno. Sorry. And he's trying to chase Phelps. Phelps has the little suction cup things, and Ethan doesn't. So he's just like holding on for dear life, trying to like finagle his way down the train. And they're getting closer to the tunnel, and Mac's freaking out because her thing is not going to transfer in time.
Why is it? Does anybody know why? I never heard the term tunnel until this movie. What's the difference between a regular tunnel and a channel? I would like to know.
So I think it's the tunnel's a type of train. So the tunnel, it's like
a channel tunnel is known as.
It's under seas, right? It's
undersea
underwater.
railway.
Yeah.
Oh,
That connects Folkestone, England to. I'm not going to butcher that French.
Did not know that.
Yeah. So those are the facts. Now Jim is trying to connect to the damn helicopter, and Ethan like flies backwards, gets the thing, and hooks it to the train. And he does this loud shout and looks right at Jean Reno. He's like, "Fuck you!" And Jean Reno's like freaking out. He's like, "I can't lift my helicopter. I can't lift. The tunnel's coming up in like 3 meters." And he's like, "Fuck! I gotta go in the tunnel," and like dives. And now we've got a train connected to a helicopter in a tunnel, and this is like the pivotal end of the scene. You got the conductor saying, "No, it's in the freaking tunnel. It's gonna crash. You gotta speed up the train." This is like fucking crazy. What's going on?
I've seen that guy in something else. I wish I knew.
He looks like Mr. Bean
No,
or something.
he's from something, and it's bothering me. Let me look it up. You guys keep going.
All right, so we got Phelps. He's like, "God damn it," and he's gonna fucking disconnect the thing. Ethan's holding on to the side of the train for dear life, and there's another train incoming. And he reaches up, finally is able to, touch one of the suction cups to get his body up before he gets hit. Jean Reno somehow evades the incoming train with the space of the helicopter.
Yeah, which made no sense.
I don't think I think that helicopter would probably fucking crash at that point. But, this is a movie. We're supposed to have fun. And then, they're fighting. And then Jean Reno, in a selfish act, is like, "All right, Phelps is on the helicopter. I'm going to try to use my helicopter to kill Ethan." And as he's tilting it, he tilts it too far, hits the top of the tunnel, and then Ethan jumps on the helicopter. Excuse me. And it's like, the music starts blaring and really going off. He's going to, pull this off. And then he pulls out, what does he pull out? A stick of gum.
Now, this is what I found. And I think out of all the deaths that Ethan went through, Jack's hurt him the most. It seems like he was very close with Jack. And giving, like, a tribute to Jack to take out the man that killed him. I don't know why. I find that very sweet that he loved Jack as much as he did.
So he goes red light, green light, sticks the gum on the helicopter.
But how did he but where did he get... How was he able to stick it, though? Where did he get, like, the spit on it? Like, what did he do?
I mean, look, we're looking at it now. He's hanging on to the helicopter. He's looking straight at Phelps. The music is blaring. Jean Reno's freaking trying to keep this thing stable in the tunnel.
Oh, he pulls it out with his teeth. Okay, that's how he gets the saliva.
It goes red light, green light. I guess that gives it enough to be able to stick on the window. And then he, like, jump explodes.
Yeah, he jumps and the explosion
Famous
propels him.
A famous shot.
And then he's hanging on for dear life. The helicopter crashes. For some reason, the train stops, and the one blade of the helicopter comes within, an inch or two of slicing Ethan's throat off.
His jugular.
Another great little moment.
Yep. It doesn't. You see the conductor in the back of the train.
He passes out.
He sees that Ethan, almost died. He looks at the wreckage and passes out. And it's a funny little scene. Then you see Luther. He's like, "Yeah, this is the fucking disc, Mr. Kittredge. You're gonna re-eval me now." And then you start to see Kittredge, and this kind of foreshadows what happens in Dead Reckoning, where he makes this deal with Max instead of going through the legal process. So maybe we'll come to some sort of agreement.
It makes me love Dead Reckoning even more than I already do.
Mm-hmm. And then we see the final scene where we go and see the newscast and say, hey, look, there was a high-speed collision. There was a train, a freaking helicopter in a tunnel. We don't know what's going on in London. And Tom Cruise walks out. The Cranberries are playing in the correct versions. And he talks to Luther, says, "Hey, Luther, how you doing, bro?" And he's like, "Yo, I gotta, I'm avowed, man. I'm a free man." And they just talk about, how his parents were confused and they got an apology from the Justice Department about being arrested and everything. Luther raises his glass. And they say cheers. Tom had drinking a little bit more of his beer.
Yeah, I noticed that he's almost done before Luther even starts.
Mm-hmm. Luther says, "Why don't you come back to the IMF with me?" And Ethan says, "I don't know why I would be doing it," essentially. And then he, walks. Or I think is he saying back to the IMF or back to just work with him? I always was confused about what he was talking about there.
I think back to the IMF.
Yeah.
That Luther's allowed back in the inner sanctum.
Yeah.
Now, are they going to the offices that are revealed in Mission Impossible 3? Is Lawrence Fishburne waiting for Luther?
And then we see the final shot in the British Airways.
Where he tells
Ethan's sleeping, and she says, "Excuse me, Mr. Hunt, would you like to watch a movie?"
A redo of the opening scene.
Yes.
With Phelps.
He's annoyed. He's like, "No, I don't want to watch a movie. I was sleeping. No, thank you." She's like, "How about the cinema of the Caribbean?" And he's like, "Aruba, perhaps?" And he's like, "God damn it, this is when I turn bad." And, then the music starts playing, screen goes black, and the U2-ish version of the Mission Impossible music plays. And that's cinema.
So, thoughts on thoughts.
Thoughts on thoughts, Matthew.
Well,
Thoughts
someone
on
else
thoughts.
go first. I'm looking through my notes here. There was a couple other things
So, this is one of those like the Shaq memes, because for a bit we were talking about our Mission Impossible rankings. I never had Mission Impossible 1 low. I kind of had it in the middle where I'm like, yeah, Mission Impossible 1's really pretty good. But that was before I really had the respect of De Palma and really took a notice to how his movies are shot, how they're staged, how the suspense is in it. And watching it now with the context of all of that, it easily shoots up to top 2, top 3.
And
I don't have a definitive part of where it's going to rank yet, but it's one of those where there's no other mission movie like the first one, because it becomes, after 2, it becomes more of an action franchise. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, there's not a wasted moment in this movie. Everything has purpose. Everything leads into the next scene or leads into the culmination, the conclusion. Just very well shot. Music scored fantastic. And just the epitome of what a spy movie should have been at the time.
Yep, and this was coming after Bond's comeback with Pierce, GoldenEye, World Is Not Enough. It's interesting, because I don't. So you were around. So you were 10 years old when this movie came out, and you had both Bond and this at your disposal. What really drives your love for the first Mission Impossible? Because I noticed it's a very special movie for you.
It was just a unique movie because it's not like the others, like you said. Even if they become more action or more focused on the individual teams that they have in the movies, but I always thought this was the best one, despite any of the other sequels. Not that I don't love them, and they're really, really good or really, really close to this movie. But I think this movie just, again, there's nothing wasted. The casting is perfect. I wouldn't change any of the casting. The action scenes hold up, and there's suspense and actors. Doing their job, a great score. I mean, it's just like a perfect movie. You can rewatch it a million times and never get tired of it.
Now, is there anything from things that they do in this movie that you wish they would try to do more in the later movies? But I think they are.
Yeah.
As much as, there's still a lot of action in the McQuarrie ones, he starts bringing in more of the espionage kind of ways back into it full force, at least to me.
Yeah, maybe just more of the... I don't think I want them to be like this one. This one is its own thing, but this has more of a noir feel than any
And
of
it
the other
represents
movies.
the times, too, whereas right now it's very modern. It's based on AI, based on, very modern technology. This one represented its time period very well. It was very,
the beginning of the technology really playing a part in our society.
And don't know if it was foreshadowing Luther getting into AI. Maybe he created the entity. Who knows? We have one movie left.
If there was one thing I wish they brought into the later ones is a lot of the technical film things, the lighting of it, the color grade of it. It's a very pleasing movie to look at. Everything is lit excellently. There's contrast in the faces. Nothing looks flat. Nothing looks dull or gray, which a lot of movies, ever since we get into the gritty realism kind of phase of movies, it's nice having a bit of color, the warmth, how Prague looked at night, the weird blue light and the big gigantic fog that you don't know where the hell it would come from at 8 o'clock at night in Prague, but it doesn't matter because it looks cool. I wish a lot of times it just looks cool.
Also, everyone's eye colors really stood out.
Yes.
And the lipstick.
Yeah, those dramatic zooms. Just
Sometimes it was a little awkward when they had Kittredge really demeaning somebody, very zoomed in.
the wide angle shots. Again, but no, I know there's only one Brian De Palma. No one's gonna really shoot a movie like him. But I think McQuarrie, is the closest to being like he gets what he was trying to do with this first movie, but also he has to be like but it's a Tom Cruise action franchise, so I think he's been doing better at balancing the both. Even Brad Bird in Mission Impossible 4 with that entire scene at the Kremlin. Not my favorite Mission Impossible, we'll get there, but yeah.
Yeah,
But,
I like the callbacks to this movie that they're doing now.
And there could be more in 8. We don't know. Again, what's his name? The guy in the vault's coming back with the knife. So that should be fun. It might just be a little stupid cameo, but I don't know how much of a role he's going to play. But now you had an interesting thing where you're kind of hoping for Emilio Estevez to pull a Neo in the Matrix Revolution return, where he has no eyes and he somehow comes back.
He is how the entity talks. He talks through an eyeless Emilio Estevez.
So like Palpatine and the
Yes.
Rise of Skywalker, where he's attached to the machine.
Exactly. Yes.
But so do we want to go over? So I guess we can't go over our.
we're not gonna we're not gonna be able to rank yet, but
But not rankings, but like,
extremely good theme, top notch villain.
I
John
like
Voight
the
is
team. I like
freaking fantastic.
the opening team. The opening team I liked. I think they all meshed well together. They again, like I said earlier, it seemed like they really did have. They knew each other. They kind of had a bond that you didn't really get again until I would say Benji was part of the team in 4.
Yeah.
Because as much as I have a good soft spot for Mission Impossible 3, even when you had Mackie Q and whatever the other guy's name was, they didn't really seem like they knew each other, but they didn't really care about that because they had Luther there and Tom Cruise and Ving Rhames working off each other, they know how to work together.
Yeah, the later movies have become about how he takes his experience from the first movie and losing a team
Yeah.
and will do anything for his team.
Yep. And I think unless 2 tells me anything different when we watch it, I think a lot of people really put a lot of stock into how Ethan is in 2 being a reaction to him losing his team. I think that's a bit of an overread. I think they were just trying to do a completely different thing that I'm sure we're going to discuss in our next episode, but I just don't know how you go from something like this that was so well constructed and focused and just, I don't know how you go from a spy thriller caper noir kind of movie into a bombastic early 2000s action flick.
And it's interesting. Skipping through the opening intro, it shows most of the movie and a lot of spoilers.
As they do in all that come after, right? They do pretty much a quick summary of the movie.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
It's a very good movie.
I still don't think that looks like Claire in the very beginning when he's looking at that photo. It's very... that plane looks very comfortable.
Okay. I think we've reached a conclusive point here.
It's a Mission Impossible. It's a excellent movie. You should watch it if you haven't watched it. And if you don't rank it very high, I don't appreciate you as a human being.
So, that's your final thought. Matthew, final thought?
Yeah, watch it. Enjoy the movie. Get some
my
popcorn.
final thought is, if you like this one, you'll love The Untouchables. Another Brian De Palma flick. Very close together with Mission Impossible in terms of my love for them, because The Untouchables, I think, is a perfect movie and also has another really cool bridge sequence. But, Michael, can you tell us what our next episode is going to be?
It's going to be Mission Impossible 2.
Directed by John Woo.
John Woo. And, I have opinions about Mission Impossible 2.
Has any of us seen the movie fully?
I've seen it. I think once fully, and then I've tried to rewatch it multiple times, and I just
One of the weirdest left turns for a sequel, I think, in movie history, right? There's no other sequel, I think, that is such a departure from the one that came before it.
it's just very, very out of place in the whole series.
I think with that one, I'm going to try to come in with some behind the scenes facts, because there has to be something that caused that.
I haven't seen it yet, so it's going to be a surprise.
But I love that damn Metallica song. I do love it.
I can't wait to discuss that, and who knows, it could surprise us. There could be things that we like. A lot of people defend it and put it high in their rankings somehow. I don't know if that's going to happen with us, but I'm willing to be surprised.
Well, we look forward to the next one, and we will be doing every single movie. We will have a surprise show about another part of the Mission Impossible catalog, per se, and we will continue these leading up to the final reckoning, probably the most anticipated movie in my lifetime, and if it's not good, it will destroy me as a human being. But I have no doubt that it will be good, because I loved Dead Reckoning.
What's the countdown? Does anybody have the countdown? Just type in like how many days until Mission Impossible 8. Start the countdown.
So it's May 23rd it comes out, so days until May 23rd.
Oh, you know where I'm going to be? I'm going to be in Disney still.
Oh,
I don't get back till the... You're going to have to wait an extra day or two. You can't go, you can't go without me.
It's 76
I mean,
days.
me and Matthew did go see Cowboys and Aliens at midnight.
This a little bit different.
You could go to one of those nice Disney theaters.
It is a holiday. Actually, you know what? Speaking of, it's Memorial Day weekend. They're doing Memorial Day weekend again. Look at that.
For the end.
Look at that.
If it's the last one. And then all of a sudden Jeremy Renner comes in. I'm taking over the franchise.
Don't you rip Brant. I love Brant.
We'll get to Brant.
All right. Well, we've enjoyed this experience, and we'll see you for Mission Impossible 2.